Welcome back. We finished The Naked Sun, Book 2 in the Robot series by Isaac Asimov. How'd you like it?
I really like this book.
You liked it more than the last book?
Huh?
You liked it more than Caves of Steel?
I think so.
Oh my god. Uncultured.
Why?
Ew.
Why?
No, I do like it, and I see online actually this has rave reviews. Like people are reading it at a rave. It's very odd. That's not true.
Is it?
It's 5 out of 5 though, and it's tons. And no, we're not going to go down that little petty joke. We're not going down there. We're going to stick to the plot. But yeah, I really do see this get a lot of reviews. Not that Caves gets a lot of great reviews too, but one person worded it, it's such a cozy mystery sci-fi. This one feels cozier. It feels like a nice, like you said, you picture a summer day reading this.
I felt like he did a better job of making this one a mystery. I felt like the other one was really obvious.
That he was going to hop on the back of a robot and sprint across town
Yes.
using his new mount that he acquired at level 13.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. So I mentioned last time, if anybody's new, like I read this one. I read the next book too, for sure. But the running joke is how bad my memory is. But I kind of remembered this one. It hit me while we were talking last time, I think. I was literally picturing her bashing
his memory's so bad he doesn't remember when he realizes that you remember.
That is kind of funny. All right. I'll take that L, as the kids say. But I remember that the robot, I remember his arm. So it was literally funny. I visualized, so spoilers, of course. I always like to give that warning. If you're here, we're from chapters 8 to the end of the book. I remember the robot's hand is what smashed in this guy's head. For some reason, I super visually remember that.
Like just a fist smashed into a head?
Yeah, so my brain literally remembers things like a mystery novel. Like I have a snippet that would be misleading because then later I remembered, because like she's the one that killed him though. That's what I remember too. I was like, but the robot literally killed her, but she's the one that killed him.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I remembered later while we were talking, I was like, oh shit, let me not talk anymore when you were trying to figure out who you suspected. Because you really didn't suspect anybody else.
I didn't entirely. So my suspicion fell back onto her when we find out later that she was withholding information.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, you know what? Danielle was right about you.
Mm-hmm. That you a hussy.
You a
Jezebel.
And like, she is way too okay
hot.
with too many things.
Yeah, I didn't say hot. She's way too. Yeah, what you said, for sure. They make such a thing. They don't hanky pank. How about that? Right?
They don't do anything.
Yeah, they don't. That's what, because you thought they were gonna make him.
She wanted to hanky pank.
Yeah,
but
which is kind of the whole
what I find
plot
interesting
point.
is that she's gonna be sent to.
I know, Aurora.
She's being sent to Aurora, and then he's like, "You guys should send me to Aurora."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh really?
Listen, we're trying to fight crime across the galaxy, you jealous woman. I can't go follow a hussy across space and fight crime that I don't even know is gonna. There's got to be crime there somewhere. I'll be a freelance.
Every red flag in my jealous woman brain said,
I'm gonna follow this hussy.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So the next book we'll pick up. Well, shit. Sorry. Too bad.
You don't have to. It's written.
They say that, right? That it happens? Okay.
I mean, no, they don't
doesn't explicitly say that, but you know.
They said it in the forward of something else, but or one of the forwards, but he didn't even have to. It's like written in black and white here. Mm-hmm. Where so
literally, unless you highlighted it.
I actually did.
It's because we make a joke. She highlights so much.
Half this book,
but it's very helpful. I do appreciate it as much as I make fun of all your yellows. Everywhere. Go ahead.
My book looks like it's bleeding.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the murder gets solved. Bailey goes back to Earth, and he's talking to the guy that sent him on this mission to begin with, because he's basically been told when being sent on this mission to also do like recon for Earth, because we're trying to figure out if there's any way that we can like fight the spacers off. So he's basically telling this Earth guy, like, the spacers have this weird culture. They're basically gonna, like, fade out and die on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, great, that's perfect. That's all we need, really.
Yeah.
That means that we'll be free of them. And he's like, but we're gonna be free like in our caves. This doesn't benefit anyone. We're gonna do the same thing they're doing, except they're doing it on the surface of the planet, and we're just gonna spiral into ours.
Yeah.
And that's not good. So we have to go back into space.
Yeah, which was kind of to our point we made last time. This book does feel a little disjointed in that so the whole point of this was again to remember, like Bailey fucking hit his head on something.
I was kind of like,
am I Bailey? This horrible memory.
I do feel that we just circled this entire thing.
Like, we figured that out last time.
It was so interesting. The actual murder this time was more interesting.
Yeah.
And like the fact that we're on this other planet, super interesting. And then ironically, we see very little of Daniil the entire rest of this book.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. Just to set up for that conclusion there. And we're going to get through each chapter, going through all our notes in it, but we're just kind of dumping. We haven't talked since we finished the book.
We basically circle back to the beginning where he's like, yeah, so we should leave Earth. I'm like...
Yeah, which was like the whole dramatic, impactful conclusion.
I thought that's what we had agreed
to the Caves of Steel.
In book 1.
Yeah, so that is a little weird.
Except this time he's like, I think we should leave Earth, and you know, because he's basically telling him that they only have information from Solaria, and even though it's one of the most advanced as far as robotics of the outer worlds, it's you shouldn't use it as a sole data point because their culture is so different than even the other outer worlds. Mm-hmm. They're so secluded and so...
Yeah, everybody in the other worlds actually still walks around and talks. All this weird living alone, Skyping everybody.
The viewing.
Yeah, the viewing.
Not mewing, viewing.
Yeah, no mewing, bye-bye. Yeah, the viewing. And Aurora is the capital, the so-called capital. But I think it's more of like the cultural capital.
That he sent this lady there, and now he's like, send me to Aurora.
Listen, this has nothing to do with anything.
I'll make the sacrifice, knowing that my alien crush
on Aurora,
over there,
they walk around naked too. You sure? Yeah.
Well, I just love. He literally tells her, I'm going to go back to Earth, and in 40 years, I'm going to be old and decrepit and dead, and you're going to barely have aged at all because you live like another 300 years.
Yeah. She's like, don't say that, no.
Don't say that. I like you just the way you are.
Yeah. I'll gene splice you into the future. I'll just clone you.
I'm going to miss you.
Yeah. So, yeah, you want to jump...
Wish we had sex.
Okay. Well, there goes our sponsors.
Does it?
No, we don't have sponsors. Did you want... Because we're going to get to all those and be able to rant with more context.
Yeah.
You want to jump back to chapter 8 is where we left off.
We could.
I like the whole... One of the themes here is... Let's see if I stick the wording. That the robots think logically, but not rationally.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Which I love. You know, there's a lot of real world applications on that. But that's what Daniil is. He can't figure out how the poisoning at a distance, as he words it. Because we left off that the, what's his name, head of security, Brewer, right? Was poisoned. Nobody think that's possible either on this world. But Bailey knows clearly he's been
doing
poisoned.
Doing a Skype call with Daniil and with Bailey. Mm-hmm. Daniil had stepped out. Daniil walks in. I feel so bad. Daniil is nothing but traumatized in this entire book.
Because they make such a big deal about robots can't see dead people.
No one's supposed to come to harm.
Failure of
Bailey
their being.
faints on him. Yeah. He walks in on this phone call. He faints
again later in this, right? I was joking in my head that we were making fun of back in the old days when men were men.
He does.
And they fainted every...
Bobby.
Yeah. I'm blacking out. That is nuts, man. This is how normal it must have been.
He faints twice in his book.
I really want to do a deep dive into this.
By the way.
Yeah. So, I know. If dead people is traumatic, at least fainting should be mildly traumatic.
Well, even in the second fainting, he's like, you could have died.
Yeah. Wild.
He walks in on this viewing, like, phone call that they're doing, and he literally walks into this guy dying of poisoning.
Yeah.
Which... I guess, spoiler, just so everyone feels better, he doesn't die, but they keep, like, leading on that they don't know if he's gonna die.
I was worried.
I knew everybody was on the edge of their seat, like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Murder number 2?
Murder number 2. Does he have a speech impediment too, though? That'd be kind of darkly funny because like the robot was
the death of another character, though.
Yeah. From technically the same means. We'll get there. Probably the same drug. I don't know.
No.
He takes the pills.
No, I was under the impression you just...
He didn't. No, he takes something. No.
No.
No, we'll get there. I'm sure you got it highlighted.
It's too fast.
We'll see.
Poison is...
We'll place our bets now. Go head on over to bets. We'll get there. But yeah, the robots keep seeing people dying. The robots cannot see people die. It messes them up. And that's why I was saying it'd be funny if this guy was hurt.
Brain, like all the circuits get messed up.
Yeah. So where were we? I mean, you got the whole more romance with... Not romance, but him being attracted to our Solarian here.
Yeah, he's definitely into her, and she's over there like, you should be into me.
I don't know if we mentioned last time that he literally has the dream of his wife where he's like, oh, she's thinner. I don't know why.
Oh,
she looks so pretty.
I don't know if we mentioned it, but I really hate... So, like, in the first book, he talks about how his wife was very attractive when they first met because she was young and she was beautiful. Now her hair is like... It's gotten, you can tell that she's aged a little bit, she's gained a little weight, but he still finds her very attractive and she's a very comforting thing for him.
Maybe I am Bailey.
Then he...
That's why I laughed and had to let you finish to deliver the perfect timing for that most obvious of jokes. Look at her face, guys. Pull up that camera if you can. Oh, we don't have assistants either?
There's no camera.
Come on, that was the obvious joke to make. Continue, Freddy. What? Nothing? A little trickle. I can make these jokes because it's not true. I actually make the opposite point. She had a baby and it's kind of nuts how quick she bounced back to the point that if she was a supermodel, they would hate on the toxic blah, 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 blah. So there you go. There's your compliment of the week. Continue.
I've not responded.
I know.
You're fighting with yourself.
Typical.
This is typical of a woman.
Go on. Don't make me do some manly shit and faint right now. Then you'll be like, from all the pressure.
Oh, we're gonna get canceled on episode.
Who knows? I lost track.
So, where were we?
That he has the dream that he's describing that his wife has aged.
She's described as
and
super
now he's
thin,
with this
and
hussy.
I have a bunch of quotes I can refer to. There's kind of no point.
Mm-hmm.
She's constantly referred to as having like a thin arm and a thin this and a thin that. So in the dream, his wife is like thinner than he remembered her being, almost as if she lost weight.
Mm-hmm.
And in my brain, I was like, of course, because you're super into this thin woman now.
Yeah. Batch. Some batch. What?
I swear, this.
I thought you heard a ghost in real life or something. You just give me a face. She's so mad at this guy who doesn't even hook up with this chick. He stays very faithful.
Jesse joins one cult and he's out there gallivanting the galaxy.
You get to join terroristic cults trying to destroy Earth culture. But gosh forbid. Jehoshaphat.
Did she cheat on him with anyone?
We don't know. She cheated on her countrymen with literal terrorists.
Did she?
Mentally, yeah.
Did she?
Okay.
Because they were getting.
It's a great tactic. I'll give you that. They were literally just a club. Side note: I was reading up on Real World, Freemason, blah blah blah, in a thingy, and one of the guys says, like, it's literally from 1700s, and he's like, yeah, the meetings I attended were really just an excuse to frivolities, like to just basically dick around, and I'm like.
That's just what she was doing.
Yeah, that's what she was doing in the last book. Like, this big old scary terrorist group was really just a bunch of guys bitching and just meeting up. But anyways, this chapter is more of that.
So,
more of like talking with her.
He goes to bed, and what's kind of interesting is he asked the library robot to bring him something to read to go to bed, and he asked specifically, and the library robot's like, we have so many fun, interesting things you can watch, like this space adventure and this. And he tells him, I just want some, like, your version of Friends.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want something that portrays, or like Full House, or just
He wants,
mediocre life.
Seinfeld on Solaria.
Yeah, basically.
What's the deal with viewing?
So they bring him these books, and his opinion on them were he had viewed novels and had succeeded only in learning of people with ridiculous problems who behaved foolishly and reacted mysteriously. Why should a woman abandon her job on discovering her child had entered the same profession and refused to explain her reasons until unbearable and ridiculous complications had resulted? Why should a doctor and an artist be humiliated at being assigned to one another? And what was so noble about the doctor's insistence on entering robotic research?
Yeah, I did picture your grandma's novellas in like a big old dramatic zoom.
My grandmother watches these Turkish novellas.
Well, yeah, that too. So now they're Turkish, but even the Spanish one, like the actual Spanish made ones, she watches Turkish novellas in Spanish, which is hilarious.
It's hilarious.
We are a global community, y'all. But the stereotypical Spanish ones too, they're overacting like drama. That's what it sounds like he's watching, just this kind of cheap, sensational TV. But in a culture that he doesn't understand. Because it is foreshadowing though with the whole genetics thing.
Oh,
that the kid.
Here's a line, by the way. This is where he has the dream.
Yeah, yeah.
And Jessie was beautiful. She had lost weight somehow. Why should she be so slim and so beautiful?
Yeah.
And when everything was wrong, somehow the sun shone down on them. He looked He looked up, and there was only the vaulted base of the upper levels visible. Yet the sun shone down, blazing brightly on everything, and no one was afraid. Why had he dreamed of visible, invisible sun? He could understand dreaming of Earth and Jessie, but what had the sun to do with it, and why should the thought of it bother him anyway?
Because for some reason, him sweating was stuck in my head, and that's going to be in the next book.
Guys, if there is absolutely no one
that's her
sweating
super side bet.
any of these books,
she's gonna be so vindicated. I'm not gonna live it down. So I need y'all to rewrite it, upload it to Amazon.
If there isn't a scene where someone's sweat is used to prove whether there's a robot or not in the room, because that's how specific he told me that this was.
No, I know where he is, but I can't say where. I just said that he's sweating. He's outside. Spoiler alert. You see with the character arc, his progression as a character in this one, he's getting used to being outside. Mm-hmm. So mild spoiler. Mm-hmm.
You've changed it, but okay.
No, I didn't.
You told me. You wouldn't remember.
He's sitting by a tree and he's sweating. There you go. Outside. In the outside. Okay?
Okay.
It's going to be there. I put it on paper. I put it on
better happen.
Digital. It will happen. Oh my God. I'm not nervous at all. Pure Earthman confidence. I'm going to faint. All right, come on. We got 10 chapters here.
I know.
They're all good, but we really don't need. There's not so much here.
I mean, like, I really feel like chapter. He did a bunch of. It's very fun. So, as far as a book is concerned, it's very fun to follow him into all these interviews that he does, because basically he ends up in a situation where he realizes he doesn't know these people well enough. He doesn't know this culture well enough, and he really wants to kind of like corner some of the people that he thinks are suspects. Yeah. And he decides that he needs to see them, not view them.
Yeah, see them in person, physically.
Which for me made sense, because as a detective, I would hate if I have to interview someone
from Skypes.
Yeah, imagine having to do some type of investigative interview and they're on a Skype call.
But also because you want to see how they're going to react. That's where I thought the book was going to go more. Like, who's going to, I guess it kind of does, but who's going to get angry at this? Like, how will people react to this imposition?
Well, that was a whole, there's a whole speech on that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I was like, well, I guess it does. Obviously, homeboy loses his mind. Literally.
So he calls the guy that's the acting head of security now. He literally bullies him into giving him like a letter that says that anyone he wants to see, they have to allow it for the investigation.
Yeah. Jehoshaphat. I think we just go to chapter 9, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chapter 9, you got this cool little part highlighted here where Bailey says, I could blast you down where you stand, because they're having a debate, him and Daniil. And right now, Bailey says, there is nothing in my potentials to prevent me, meaning there's not like a code in humans. There's not the 3 laws of robotics.
Oh, so he's saying he's going to blast him down because Daniil's basically like, I cannot let you leave.
Yeah, he won't.
Because
letting him leave, I mean, obviously he's going to get assassinated is the fear.
Yeah, Daniil confesses to him that he has instructions to basically protect Bailey above all other people, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, until you realize he's going to sell out the entire galaxy. You got to think 20,000 years ahead, okay? Yeah, it's not just cute.
I think he still loves Bailey.
Okay, maybe that too. I think they really do. And you get more descriptions of his emotions in this one. So I'm wondering how many books are in the... I've been meaning to look this up. It's crazy. There are...
My master's on Aurora have for some time been uneasy about Solaria. I have been told all the information at their disposal.
God damn. Sorry, this is a random tangent, but the robots...
But not the way you have now proposed, partner Elijah. I have been instructed most carefully to guard your safety.
The Robot series, for anybody wondering, is 37 short stories and 6 novels spanning from 1940 to 1995 of writing. That's 55 years of writing in this timeline. Pretty damn cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, I've been wondering that. Where's my note here? There you go.
Okay. Does it not follow that if I permit you to proceed in your plan for exposing yourself indiscriminately an actual person, the next victim will necessarily be yourself? How then can I possibly permit you to leave the safety of the mansion? How will you stop me, Daniil? By force if necessary, partner Elijah, said Daniil calmly. Even if I must hurt you, if I do not do so, you will surely die. Yeah. I put all because I thought that was so cute. He just really
he really wrote a note. All. That's funny. Again, with the surely, this book starts to expose that these robots don't know. That's so much flaw in the 3 laws.
I might have to.
Uh-oh, baby break.
Possibly. And...
All right, mini baby break. We're back. So
he basically, Daniil's going to stop him, and he's going to use other robots to stop Daniil because he realizes that it's some convolutedness with the first law. I do think this is kind of interesting. It's worth touching on.
Yeah.
That in order to leave the mansion, what Bailey does is that he calls in 3 other robots because he knows 3 robots to 1 should be able to overpower Daniil, even if he is advanced.
Yeah.
It was really messed up. He has Daniil open his chest because he was asking him to prove that he's Daniil the robot and not a person.
Yeah.
So for Daniil, it made sense. So he opens his chest up on command, and then he has the other robots come in. And he's like, look, this guy's been fooling you because up to this point, Daniil's been acting as a person.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is actually a robot too. You have to listen to me and you don't have to listen to him.
Yeah.
And he literally feels like he's just betrayed Daniil. And I agree. That was messed up. So he thankfully, he tells the robots, he's like, all right, here's the plan. You cannot let this robot get in communication with anyone or stop me from doing anything.
Yeah.
However, you also cannot tell anyone else that he is a robot. And you can't tell another robot he's a robot.
There's a lot of commands, sir. They didn't say that, but I'm laughing at because in the audiobook, it does a good job of differentiating to remind you that these are lower robots. They literally talk like robots. Yeah. So, but it is helpful. Remember, these are simple functional bots, whereas Daniil is playing with emergent, mind. Really a thinking thing.
So it was.
But yeah, that scene was good because
when he says that, Daniil literally goes, "Thank you."
Yeah, and softly, you get these little descriptions of his
Daniil's very human.
He's way more human, way more emotion, and obviously he's undercover as a human. That's the whole point.
So he's off. He literally leaves the house. No tubey tubes. No.
Oh yeah.
No, calls up robot driven car and hops in. And what's crazy is I had to picture that across this entire planet, all these estates are scattered and they could be any number of miles away from each other. So estates could literally be thousands of miles away from each other.
Hundreds, yeah.
No, thousands.
It says it, yeah.
I mean
there's only 20,000 people on the whole planet, so yeah.
One of them was only like it was like 1,000 something miles from the other.
Really? Shit, I remember that. I forgot. I was trying to remember how big their like lots or their kingdoms.
It was Gladia and the doctors where the murder was done. His estate is like 1,000 miles away from either Bailey or where the head of security was.
That's crazy.
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because there's and how many robots per person? Like 20,000 per person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy.
So the first person he's gonna go see is a sociologist. You get some like cool info talking to him.
Anselmo Quimont.
Yeah. So Quimont like feels very naughty. Seeing
he's naked too.
No,
he just comes out of
he's fully dressed, but he does feel naughty seeing Bailey. Like there's something about it that he's in the room and he's turned to the side and he's able to handle it without making eye contact with Bailey for a certain amount of time, and then he breaks and he leaves. But you do get this really cool snippet of information where he swears that he's coming up with like a new science.
It did feel very Selden-esque.
It felt Selden-esque.
A little bit like super early, you know.
Well, no, actually, for sure I feel like Bailey, what Bailey was saying. So Earth has sociology connected with mathematics.
Yeah.
And he basically is like, all right, Doc, like, I get that you're talking all these theories, but like...
When he starts rattling off those formulas.
He rattles off formulas to this doctor.
Which is interesting that Bailey knew that, like, did show the level of education, general education on Earth.
Yeah, because he's not a
Yeah.
Like, that's not his major.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have been for a long time. I mean, Bailey's in his 30s, I think, 40s.
I forget.
He's definitely at least in his 30s.
A private stall in the community bathroom for one person given for a cause would keep X persons waiting patiently for the same lighting to strike them, the value of X varying in known ways, with known variance in environment and human temperament as qualitatively described in the Terramin relationship. So that's like an example of mathematics in sociology.
Yeah.
Like that would be the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And literally this guy's like, what nonsense are you talking about?
Yeah.
Bailey's like, I mean, it's sociology. It's just you do the math.
He expected him to know that. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's like, what's your sociology?
I am coming up with theories. I am like, he basically sounds like he's making his own science.
Yeah.
Oh, I am the only one. You might also say I have invented the science. It's literally a line from this guy.
Yeah. You think that means that the human sociology is actually more advanced than this one? Yeah. Because
what's happening in Stellaria is that they're becoming so isolated. They're going backward. And he could reference book films and stuff, but they probably think, why reference books from other places? Because he goes, I've looked at some Auroran books, some. And Bailey says, have you looked at books from Earth? He says, Earth? Quimont laughed uneasily. It wouldn't have occurred to me to read any of Earth's scientific productions, no offense intended.
Which is cool, foreshadowing the illusion of superiority that was just instilled in Bailey, like in the first book. Spacers are just better at everything because they're better at a few things. And that's such a human thing to do. Literally
over there like, I've discovered sociology. And it's like, what are you talking about? Okay.
Like, Bailey's starting to see that Earth is just another one of the planets, and you know it's not really a spacer planet, but in a weird way, it could be. You could look at it.
Yeah,
it's a human planet. Like, stop having the separation between Earthling and human, because between Earthling and spacer, because all the spacers came from Earth, and there's even spacer-minded people. Not yet so much, but the goal is to cultivate them on Earth.
Then he literally talks about like Sparta.
Yeah, that was funny.
And he's like, have you heard of it? Where do you think it came from?
Yeah, because Bailey was going heavy on the Bible in the first book. He likes reading ancient stuff. And so, yeah, he heard of Sparta. And the Helots, the slave underlings.
But the thing I found most interesting here was that he talks about, how he feels that Celeria is a civilization where...
That's in 9? In the same chapter he's talking about Sparta?
Pretty sure.
Right.
I don't think I didn't see 10 yet.
Yeah, let me
Unless I scrolled past it.
Because he brings that up to point out that that's how you're going to get introduced into...
Oh, no, it's in 10.
Yeah, it's in 10. Bad. Okay.
All right, so we're in chapter
10. Yeah, you might as well just say we're in chapter 10. But the Sparta thing is so much of Sparta's time, at least from what my understanding, is that there was even go in there and like actively, what would you call it? They had a time regularly go in to terrorize the Helots, however you want to say, the slave population, because they're such superior warriors and with technology and all that, just to keep them knowing their place. And so the fear is if the robots could ever rise up, like, because the Spartans had to do that because Spartans had to develop the warrior culture so that they could keep their slaves from revolting. But on Celeria, they got robots with the 3 laws, so they can never turn against. Yeah, it's like the opposite. They literally are having panic attacks if humans get hurt. Their slave race is actually trying to always protect them. But if that would ever change, they're super screwed. Imagine 20,000 to 1 slave revolt. Be pretty instant. And even though the ratios aren't that crazy, I think on Aurora it was like 50 to 1, I think he said. So all of Spacer society is going to be screwed if there's a slave revolt.
A
robot slave revolt. Yeah.
So things I took away from this were that he feels that Celeria is like the apex of society, where like if you see society as like a pyramid, and the bottom was always envious of the top, he feels like Celeria is at a point where it's just that top ring, having control of a planet, a top ring, like that top.
I know, we know what you meant.
I kind of disagreed, and it's why I think they end up dwindled down to 1,200 people later.
Yeah, they're so superior they hang out alone in their mini caves.
Yeah. And then the other thing I found cool was that he has this theory that the more robots you have, the more your society will just start to decline. Yeah. Because like the more robots there are, the less people.
Which hints at a super cool, one of my favorite, lines in this book, like lines of thinking. He's being mauled by our house panther. One of the lines in this book, subplot, whatever you want to call it, there's definitely a shadowy room of people, a secret society of both Aurorans with Daniil, and on Earth, though. The Earth people are putting together like that these spacers aren't all that these spacers don't have it figured out. Of course, at the end of the book, more so. But that, like, there's the way that they've set up their society, it really could collapse. Because it's the military might. It's the same thing with the Helots and the Spartans. Like, because we got our ass kicked in the war with the spacers, they must just be technologically superior in every way. But like your guy here, he's proposing this theory that, robot growth and dependency might lead to extinction.
Yeah.
So, and of course Bailey's going to tell that to the Earth folk at the very end.
Yeah, at first the human population increases, but the robot population increases much more quickly. Then after a certain critical point is reached, the human population begins actually to decline. A planet approaches a true social stability. Aurora will have to, eventually Earth will have to. Earth may take a few more centuries, but it is inevitable.
Mm-hmm. I don't know where, but he mentions that, I loved it because it was so realistic, that no matter what laws you come up with, it never slows down no matter what. Once people start relying on robots, they keep relying on robots. Yeah, they don't get rid of it.
It's a law that he kind of came up with.
Yeah. But it does seem plausible. You can make comparisons people always make with social programs. Like, if people were against, this and that government program, but once it exists forever, once you get a couple generations of that program, like nobody thinks about getting rid of Social Security. I say nobody loosely, but it's a pretty agreed upon thing on both sides. Even if people used to debate it, she's literally being attacked. Come on, man. Our cat gets love. Don't worry. He just wants it right now.
Yeah, basically.
Mm.
I'm trying to see, but I just can't find it. He basically feels. This is chapter 11, by the way, because this conversation ends up being pretty long. But there is a part where he basically says that once robots are introduced, because they make life so easy, you can't just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Like, we just become dependent on it.
That's what I mean. Even the laws don't do it.
This is also a preview as to what ends up being found out in Foundation, where the next wave of settlers that are going to come from Earth are going to be super anti-robot. And it's probably because if they bring robots with them to begin with, we're just going to be setting up more spacer colonies.
Yeah.
Like, we got to go places without robots and just spread
excellent
humans
point.
out.
I'm glad you remembered that. Yeah. Yeah, that's why this guy is the intellectual seed, like you said, of whatever culture takes place for the Empire. Whenever we get into the books that detail the rise of the Empire, because Foundation is the fall of the Empire, but so much, they never heard the word robot.
Yeah.
They literally, that's the whole point in book 4, Foundation. Like, that's just so cool. I'm glad of all the critiques we did of the 4 and 5 books from Asimov. It's so cool to write all that. I just said he wrote 55 years of robot stories. To have his other main story have humans that have no idea what a robot is.
Yeah, I do. It is very cool. And then to find out that they are all intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Literally one of my favorite things about his works. So, I see your thing here, pyramidal structure.
Basically, after that, Bailey has a sandwich because we can't go through this book without
milk.
him eating.
I love he drinks a lot of milk. That's a random point, but about eating healthier and cleaner and how people used to eat in the 50s and all that. Everybody was a little healthier, it seems, in a lot of ways.
He does find out that the doctor that was murdered had an assistant, and the assistant happens to be a woman. Curveball!
What?
Why was that
Jehoshaphat.
Jehoshaphat.
I saw, by the way, super random tangent, the original, look it up, cover for Battleship, the board game. It's like great fun for the whole family, and the whole joke, then they zoom in, like it's the little daughter and the wife washing dishes while the dad and the son are playing Battleship.
Hilarious.
Because, and I've seen some people critique online and Asimov, like, oh, they're sexist, this and that. I'm like, he's writing in the 50s, and he's clearly like so progressive. He got so much shit from, all kinds of conservative or religious people for like guys, he's showing it in the time of his day, but you're not supposed to like it. Like Bailey has some,
I had to see it for myself. It's
expressions
so true.
like that. Oh yeah, look it up. Yeah, there it is. That's the first one there.
Dad and son are playing.
Yeah.
Mom's washing the dishes and the daughter's like drying them.
Mm-hmm.
But check it out. Oh, I thought it was 2 old ladies playing. It's just 2 blonde kids.
It's like that 50s, 60s style art. But it made me think that, like, that's the setting of this book. Like, that's how people look. Like, that's the, and oh my God, he's being sexist. It's like, I mean, it's not promoting it. He's writing it realistic for the day. But yeah, that's why. But all the spacer worlds don't have any hang-ups like that, anything like that. I mean, even Earth doesn't have anything like that. It's not that strange that it's a female assistant. It is strange for what you were saying last time, especially as a new mom. I'm sure that's a good transition into that. This lady works with the baby, with the fetus.
As a new mom, this entire society was so weird.
Mm-hmm.
It was so weird. Because, one, I felt I was right that these people just don't like kids.
Yeah.
I feel like they don't like them because they want. So, ironically, I read a parenting book. It was actually very good. It's called The Whole Brain Child.
A book about monster trucks.
Highly recommend it. But basically in the book, it was written by a neuroscientist, and they talk about how we're literally just social beings. Like the brain is built as a social organ almost. And so it's hilarious to see these people as a society want to beat out of these kids the need to be social, and how they find it disgusting that like it's unnerving that you have to give these kids affection and attention, and then they want to like play with each other.
Yeah. Might as well get into that. So the only thing we talked about really today.
We find out that the doctor who was killed was a gene. I had a hunch that he had to do a gene analysis.
Yeah.
But it's specifically for fetuses and children. So the way it works on this planet is that when you're a month into your pregnancy,
1 month,
they start analyzing the fetus to make sure that there isn't any weird DNA stuff going on, and they actually remove it from you, so it's no longer in your body. Which, on a side rant, the eugenics of this.
Yeah, I love how. Yeah, so the whole thing, science, and it makes sense, and we're following the science, and that's how real eugenics would work in the future. And it's like, you hear this today in real life conversations with people pro the baby pod thing. Like there's I don't know what you want to call it, a startup thing. The idea, the business model that you could sell these little pods in the future to grow your babies. But it's like, how are you following the science if the whole science is that there's a whole interplay of the mom's entire physiology with the baby?
There's so many things
for bad, of course. So you would mitigate all the bad, and you can go smoke meth and drink because the baby's in a pod, but you don't get any of the positive.
There's a bunch of benefits, like your baby gets used to your heartbeat, your baby gets used to your smell, your baby gets used to, I mean, I guess in this case, in this society, they're not giving the kid back.
It's just funny.
So the benefits don't matter.
Yeah. I guess I need to make this point a little, you'll notice, look out for the only two people that act like we are not the products of evolution are, funny enough, like these weird futurists. I don't know what else to call them besides like these weirdo kind of far lefty types, that we aren't part of evolution. They don't like evolutionary biology. That's a huge thing. Evolutionary psychology, they think it's like a fake thing. But how funny that it's those types, and only like the super religious, like God literally made Adam and Eve, like two people. We really do. That's a literal story. That the only two people that act like we're not animals are the super Christian types and the super Marxist types, commie types. Like man is a unique, perfect being, like this soul. Like we can just decide how society works, how we're not, to use a quote, we're unbound by whatever it was. But we're literally the product of evolution for billions of years, but at least as our thing, millions of years as primates. And so, but sci-fi always plays this thing where it's like, yeah, because scientifically we can finagle the thing in a laboratory setting and that would be ideal. It's like, but that actually isn't logical. The most logical would be to provide those things in the womb, like in the mother. Yeah. Just provide the mother with all those nutrients.
Yeah, I admit.
Make it so she doesn't go to work. She doesn't drive anywhere. Like when you were pregnant, it was fucking scary. Everything's scary. Like you don't want to bump the belly. And okay, so a futuristic society would make it so you are never in threat. Like you also, but you wouldn't rip it out of the belly at 1 month.
I guess I think it's kind of funny because so we're very blessed with a very happy baby, but I also had a very smooth pregnancy. Not necessarily I had a lot of morning sickness. I had a lot of, but I was not I really tried to keep stress low. We really tried to just have me eating clean food and full meals and not a lot
tons
of
of water.
Food, tons of water. Tons. I mean,
stay super hydrated.
There's a whole,
which sucks, and you got to pee more, but.
If you're ever interested, we have our birth story somewhere on YouTube.
Yeah.
But that aside, it was we just really tried to have as good a pregnancy as possible, and I really feel like
stress and all friends and family did a good job. I felt, a lot of our people rant and complain about things, but
to not, even with my hormones, I really tried not to focus on things. And it's not like I was working from home as opposed to in the office, which was great.
Like a Solarian.
I was like a Solarian. Yeah. But I really did try, like, even when things would trigger me or something, I would just tell myself, like, it's really not worth it for me to get stuck on this. Like, whatever I'm feeling right now, I'm just going to be feeding it to the baby. And that extends after, too. But at least during the pregnancy, I just didn't want her, like, forming time to be a stressful one.
Yeah.
So I really just tried to, like, think happy thoughts, as dumb as that sounds.
I'm listening to you, and my brain reminded me, I didn't want to forget this point. And you said you literally say happy thoughts, and I'm like, this is the darkest effing thought out there. The whole thing about, later we'll get to in a sec, that they need attention. The Solarians are upset that kids, like I said, okay, the kids, why they hate children.
I do think we need to lay out how it works, but go.
So when you lay it out, keep this in mind. Children, they hate children because children remind them that they are not little, divine, separate from nature. Children are a tie to our evolutionary past, to our natural existence. Well, and that's annoying as shit to these guys that want to cut off and say, no, we've defined, logically in our heads, like what humanity should be. And it should be sitting alone in a room interacting with people.
So there's layers to what you're saying. To begin with, to give you an idea of how these kids are born into this world, you and I would have been genetically assigned based on whether our genetics as a match together could move the species forward. The species forward through, like, eugenics.
Yeah. Great.
Easy to understand.
Which is what I did through my series of questionnaires I gave you. And that blood test I did. But go ahead.
I thought he smelled good.
Yeah. That's not a dumb point. Now you're pheromones, but go ahead.
Sweet Lord.
No more rants. Tangents.
So
that once you're paired.
A month after I'm pregnant, the baby is removed from me through surgery, not with robots, because the robots literally would feel like
it's too dangerous. Yeah, the robots have a good intuition that you're doing something weird to a human.
Yeah, and actually it's
something
so
dangerous.
Funny. Robots are also not allowed to decide whether a child should move forward or not.
Yeah.
Because they would let too many kids live.
Yeah, that's a great point. You probably haven't highlighted there, but just so you repeat that, the robots let more kids live than the Solarians. The Solarians terminate pregnancies at a higher rate than a robot would.
Yep.
Which is horrifying, and I thought that was so realistic and wise of Asimov to put it that way.
Yeah, because with the first law, the robot would feel like all of these potentials for life could...
Yeah, that it would actually err on saving people, whereas it's people that would be like, fuck it, you're too short.
This is, either we have too many people, or these aren't the genes that we wanted, or, your Pokemon's EV levels weren't...
Yep, trash it. Like, I thought that was very wise, that humans would be more cruel to humans.
So, the fetus is removed, it's put into a tube, and then robots monitor it from then on. There is one doctor and one assistant that generally view the farm, but they're the only ones that are really ever on the farm. Sorry. Once the baby is born, they are then handed off. So it's almost like a robot to child ratio.
Yeah, they have to have one. So that's what she's super annoyed at too. It's so
like they're so needy,
wasteful.
That you can't just have one robot watch over a bunch of them.
So, every single kid gets a mommy bot.
Yeah. So basically, like, it's just a room. First, he passes, when they're doing a tour of this farm, like a room of cribs. And like some babies are being rocked, and some babies are being cuddled, and some babies are being laid down or fed. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why would you not just have, whatever.
The mother do it.
I could not picture having a robot do that for me.
But why they can't?
Or at least not another, like, it would have, like, what?
Did you want to add more detail before because I won't forget. So keep going.
Let me just finish.
Yeah, keep going.
So after they get to a certain age, they start to graduate, where they're like in little classes, they're in like groups or rooms, and they get time together, the kids, with their robots, and then they start to slowly introduce independent time. So like all the kids start having X amount of independent time, so that by the time you're like 10, you're really being kind of like pushed towards viewing people and being by yourself, and
there's
but they struggle with that like 3 to 8 range or something like that. There's like an age range that's basically toddler to young to kid, where they struggle to have these kids really enjoy independent time because all they want to do is play together or play with someone or see someone.
I forgot my super dark point was that I think it was during one of the world wars or something, that they had so many young, literally infants and stuff, that they die from a lack of touch. So, like, I think that's a real thing. Somebody could look it up,
believe it. Like,
from a lack of social interaction. Like, even if you had them on a feed tube and everything else was your actual, like, chemically, like, they were supported.
No, they need that, like, warmth.
There's
they need
something,
that love.
And so kids were literally dying, like, because they didn't have any human interaction. There just weren't enough, nurses, to take care of all of them.
Okay.
So,
ironically, one of the other parenting books I'm reading, they're talking about how, like, a bunch of the, like, sleep training pamphlets and sleep training methods started and stemmed from what you're talking about, where there was more babies than there were nurses. So they just came up with, like, a mathematical way to make sure that everyone's just getting the basic nutrients and rest that they need.
That's funny.
So, like, that's why they came up with the concept of, like, babies should be eating by this age every 4 hours or because they just wanted to make sure that everyone would, like, at least ate X amount of times. Whereas, like, if you're a mom and you're home,
did you know did they mention decades when was that coming out?
They did, but I would have to
50s and 60s probably ish.
You want me to
no, don't worry about it. My point though is that this is all eugenics. Like, we think it's weird or freaky. It's like, but why? If you believe in science, why would you think eugenics is freaky? And people always point out Hitler really made a lot of things unfashionable. Racism, everybody was super racist. Anti-Semitism, everybody frickin' was back then. Like, it was Henry Ford wrote a whole treatise. And eugenics was super normal. It was seen as the progressive science. You were being like a caveman to just not even think eugenically. So this is written in the 50s. This is written in 57, I think. So it's only 10 years after the horrors of World War II and how far the Nazis took that shit that it's like, whoa.
I'll plug the book in real quick. It's called Hunt, Gather, Parent.
Yeah.
It sounds corny but it actually has way more actual research in it than I thought it would. Mm-hmm. So far I'm enjoying that book a lot. As for if you're looking for a parenting book.
Yeah, my point about the eugenics.
Plugging that in right there.
Yeah, really. But we know people that say that they wish that pod technology was here.
Yeah.
That way they could just not be,
And I get it.
It screws up your work life to be pregnant and have a kid.
Being pregnant is tough. I'm not going to sit here and be like, it was the most easygoing time. Like,
that you loved every minute. Yeah.
Months of nausea. I ended up having preeclampsia. And then, like, you're worried. And especially with your first pregnancy, I feel it's probably with every pregnancy, but for sure with your first, when you don't know what to expect, no matter how many times people tell you what to expect next, because you've never done it, you don't know. And then, like, you're sitting there and at some point you have to know the baby has to move X amount of times or something is wrong, so you'll lose track.
But you could see tech in the future solving a lot of these problems. You would just wear a little band that tells you everything, that you would just double check and say, is this good? And that's what I mean by, right now, you sound like you're going to be called a Nazi for talking like this. But when Asimov was writing this was still like not, and definitely in the future, because the logic is there. If you believe in evolution and if you believe in all the other scientific and genes and all these things, these are all scientific facts, then why would you not develop a society that has this kind of eugenic, planning to it? Like, this will happen somewhere. Some futuristic society will come to this conclusion. But where I do think sci-fi gets a little funny is I think it's realistic that humans will disregard humans in this weird connection, because we see that in real life today. But part of that logic should be that the human body that was evolved with the body it's producing would be still the best vessel to take care of the baby, not some...
I just also feel like
not some pod.
Like, we're designed like this for a reason, so there has to be a benefit to the baby being in alongside mom for X amount of time as opposed to a pod.
And I'm saying even the scientists, you use the word design, which might be triggering to like the scientist. I'm saying even within their own worldview of the science, like just there's no designer, there's just science. Like, okay, evolution, millions of years of fine tuning of growing in parallel. That system is better than your robo system.
To make anyone whose panties are in a bunch, belated trigger warning.
No, I mean, you see what I'm saying? I'm saying even according to their just secular worldview, the mother is still the better vessel. And my point about the Republic, about he's playing with Plato stuff, that because nobody in this society knows their parents.
No, so that's
a huge plot point too.
I was going to get to that.
Okay,
so,
cool.
These kids are all being raised to be separate and independent, and they're literally being raised by robots. So no one, it's not information they're not allowed to have. It's information though that is generally not given to them. And these kids generally don't ask, because if you're raised by a robot, you don't know any better.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is that when they are actually adults and they get assigned a wife or a husband, they actually have to get used to seeing someone again, because they work so hard to beat it out of them to not see, like, to get to a point where they don't want to see anyone in person.
Yeah.
That to then have someone that you have to mate with is like extremely disturbing. And they literally get nauseous at the beginning, and then they have to like get used to it again. So then we find out that the doctor that was murdered was working on basically research that was gonna be a way of like he was looking into the eugenics being pushed, where the next generation, with every generation, they would be more and more used to this when they're born, and eventually they would just be born, and you'd be very very early on introduced to the idea of viewing, and
because they want
not needing
the kids to be like the adults as quick as possible.
Other kids,
and so a really cool scene was when Bailey's at the farm. He's watching a bunch of kids play, but the older kids, like maybe 10 preteens,
like the 10-year-olds are starting to.
They're not actually there in person. They're viewing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty funny.
But that's
also
pretty
terrifying
from like the training in quotation marks that they're doing with these kids, where they'll force the kids to spend some time of the day viewing each other and being alone, and
to
so
steel
that by
man
the time
his
they
point,
get to 10, they're basically, even if they don't want to, they're kind of being forced, or they've been pushed into this viewing. And like nature.
All good sci-fi, I really think sci-fi is a branch of philosophy. Like what you would do in a philosophical argument. I keep bringing up, Plato's stuff and all that. Like, how do you just have somebody follow their logic to its conclusion? And so one of the points, she must make it, right? Clarissa, I think, tells him, like, but there's a ton of base and simple instincts that we have as people that we get rid of. You could say all the way up to, like, violence and tribalism, and, even things like racism are an extension of just tribe. Like, you're not from my group, so... And then, but even to the simplest stuff, like fear of heights. She's like, but we train people to work at heights, to get over these things, fear of the dark or something. So maybe wanting to be around other people in person is, an evolutionary hangover from some previous age that we would be better off giving up. Because you never get sick, you never get any of the issues, you can't have murders. Like, they don't even have a police force here because nobody really sees each other in person. There's so many dangers that come with interacting with humans in person that are unnecessary to the Solarians.
I found the quote, by the way.
Go ahead.
So just where they talk about a little bit of how the kids, we never forget our obligation to teach them the requirements of adulthood. Each has a separate room that can be closed off. Even from the first, they must sleep alone. We insist on that. And then we have an isolation time every day, and that increases with the years. By the time a child reaches 10, he is able to restrict himself to viewing for a week at a time. Of course, the viewing arrangements are elaborate. They can view outdoors, under mobile conditions, and can keep it up all day.
Yeah. The sleep training part, the real world advice, like you said, they sleep alone from the start.
I'm surprised you can counter an instinct so thoroughly. You do counter it. I see that. Still, it surprises me. The instinct of gregariousness. There is one. You say yourself that that as children they insist on playing with each other. Do you call that instinct? But then what if it is? Skies above, a child has an instinctive fear of falling, but adults can be trained to work in high places even when there is a constant danger of falling. So that's where she starts to...
Yeah. She just compares it to
other stuff that we train people out of.
Like superstitions, almost like seeing people is...
So this is kind of... We're getting to know the farm. We do find out, before we end up leaving the farm, some things that could make you think she's a possible suspect. We appear... The first time we meet her, we see that she has a ring on her finger.
Yeah.
And I know what you're thinking. Who gave you that? It turns out that she got that ring because... let me find it.
Top 3, right?
She was...
the third best
There's
genetics.
nothing more. My genetic health is the third highest ever recorded on Solaria. So she got a ring.
Yeah.
And she wears it because...
It's like a genetics medal. A trophy for being a genetic superhuman.
Bailey shrugged and said nothing. The woman seemed to confuse gene makeup and evidence, and presumably the rest of Solaria would do the same, because they really feel like if your genes are made up a certain way, nothing should...
Because to murder someone's a type of mental illness, in a sense. It's a type of physical flaw. That, your mind, the brain must be flawed. So there's no way she could do it. But even that said, she starts being weird in some ways, but even Bailey never really suspected her, right?
Nah.
Yeah. I was like, they didn't really go down that route.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Even if she just seems kind of...
Because she's the co-worker for the dead guy, Delmar.
Yeah, so...
Delmar's her boss.
Maybe there could have been something there. Kind of secretary... secretary boss type situation, but that's not.
And even moving up in the career, she would become.
I did find also. In fact, if you go about it right, education gets easier with each generation. It's a matter of evolution. Bailey said, "How is that? Don't you see? Each individual repeats his own evolutionary history as he develops. Those fetuses back there have gills and a tail for a time. Can't skip those steps. The youngsters has to go through the social animal stage in the same way. But just as a fetus can go through in 1 month a stage that evolution took 100 million years to get through, so our children can hurry through the social animal stage. Dr. Delmar was of the opinion that with the generations, we'd get through that stage faster and faster."
Yeah. That was the quote I was thinking of. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Because I love she even compares it to biology. We don't even look like humans in the fetus.
In 3,000 years, he estimated at the present rate of progress, we'd have children who take to viewing at once.
Yeah.
The boss had other notions too. He was interested in improving robots to the point of making them capable of disciplining children without becoming mentally unstable.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that robots can't really discipline.
Yeah. Your robot's not going to spank you.
Yeah.
It can't do anything with it.
Which, again, this book,
pure
in the
avoiding
time
you
that
crying.
it was written, spanking is...
Yeah. Encouraged.
Yeah.
Before I lose that point, that Asimov knows his history, his real-world history, and his religious studies, and these people are a form of Gnostics, of the world-denying people. They're literally trying to live as close as you can to a spirit. The whole idea is that of the Gnostics in general, of course there's a million, versions of it, but the most general thing is you could say that they think that the spark of divinity is trapped in this earth. Earth's like a prison. You shouldn't reproduce. It's funny because they hate children. Yeah. They hated children 2,000 plus years ago. So you get that parallel here with, having sex, reproducing, all of the fluids, all the grossness, and all the annoyance of kids. They're so not divine, holy beings. But if I sit here alone in a cave, literal cave, and now we're in the caves of steel, and we're in these underground, basically caves, the Solarian caves. So these Gnostics would sit alone and they would meditate on how divine and this obscure wisdom that had nothing to do with reality, that was just their made-up culture. And, you see the same parallel. They always end up hating kids. They always end up hating the flesh. They always end up being world-denying. You shouldn't enjoy food. You shouldn't enjoy other people. They would not reproduce. Reproducing was huge sin. So the Solarians still reproduce, but you get that same dynamic where they can't even say the word children. It's like it's more than a curse word. It's more
disturbing.
Yeah.
And so is the words affection and love are also.
Yeah.
I don't know if
That's
you
funny.
remember.
No.
I highlighted
but
that
those
too.
are all traps from the demiurge to make you like life in this prison, this physical prison. And so it's cool to see that in a sci-fi.
As Bailey said, I'm a little surprised robots can fulfill the need for affection. She whirled toward him, the distance between them not sufficing to hide her displeasure. See here, Bailey. If you're trying to shock me by using unpleasant terms, you won't succeed. Skies above. Don't be childish.
Yeah, perfect.
Shocked you? I can use the word too. Affection.
Yeah.
Do you want a short word? A good 4-letter word? I can say that too. Love. Love. Now, if it's out of your system, behave yourself.
I love that. Perfect quote. Man, I'm glad. Like I said, make fun of all your highlighting, but I do love it. Because that's
more or less remember where things are.
Mm-hmm. But that's, like I said, it's funny that you see the two people trying to make society from scratch to have no connection to evolutionary history or reality, or these weird religious sects and this kind of, I don't know what else to compare it to, but like these communist Marxy types.
To your point, there's also the last thing that I found interesting in this whole conversation was this idea that they're going to get away from sex. I will, and I don't think new robot models are all that Dr. Del Mar was interested in. Dr. Del Mar used to say the time would come when unfertilized ova would be stored in banks at liquid air temperatures and utilized for artificial insemination. In that way, eugenic principles could be truly applied, and we could get rid of the last vestige of any need for seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And of course, we know that it's taken to its extreme again in 20,000 years when we see the Solarians.
They're hermaphrodites that can
breed themselves.
Yeah.
Because you would technically still, a robot could, I guess, grab your eggs and sperms. So I guess you don't need to see a person to do that.
They would fertilize their own eggs, and then they would tweak the genetics of
which
it.
is nuts. Sorry, but
they would basically they would fertilize their own egg and then get a CRISPR and mess with it so that they wouldn't have any kind of weird. But
the most famous occult symbol, the horned, they always say it's like the devil, but it's Baphomet and satanic rituals and all that. But he's literally hermaphroditic. It has big old boobs, but it's a dude. And so people make a lot of parallels nowadays.
They don't have giant boobs.
I know. But it's just to show that it's female and male. And a lot of these religious, obscure cults, sects over the years, they always played with that. So it's funny that this religion that I'm saying that Asimov must be basing it off of some sort of Gnostic, sci-fi, futuristic Gnosticism, that they end up becoming hermaphroditic. That they get that full self in that sense. You literally see it in all kinds of, I don't want to say Freemason imagery, but what is it called?
It'll come to you.
Yeah, the Hermetic stuff. Hermetic artwork will have this kind of melding. A lot of alchemical stuff has the melding of the joining of man and female. Even in the Castlevania, remember? Castlevania plays with an alchemist guy, and one of the creatures, spoiler for that, you get random stray spoilers, but this creature that they create, this perfect being, is both male and female. And that's a super core, I'm just going to say Gnostic in general belief. Really hermetic.
Watch that again.
But
yeah, for someone that says we don't watch a lot of anime,
I know we've got references in both episodes. But yeah, isn't that cool? That's the culmination of this society's efforts. That when it's fulfilled, it's peak fulfillment, because they liked it, right? When we meet Bander, he thought this was the greatest shit ever.
Bander
to be a self-inseminating,
that was the only way to live.
Yeah, and that's why he was a full human, as he called it.
Yeah, he's complete.
Or a whole human,
he was
human.
Complete.
Yeah, complete. And we're halflings, so we're little half people, because we're either male or female.
Tired of your half shit.
Yeah, you little halfling.
So, we're on the farm, and the way we're gonna leave the farm is that Bailey is going to go outside, as terrifying as that sounds, and he's going to be watching some kids playing while he's like walking 20 paces away from this lady, and all of a sudden he's going to duck, I believe, because she's like, oh my god, duck.
Yeah. He's like, where? I love ducks.
Hilarious.
I'm on the farm. I've always wanted to be on the farm. I've only watched it in the Holo videos. I should have seen
it coming.
Yeah.
But basically he ducks just in time to miss an arrow, like, going into the tree. And what had happened was the children were playing, and the children happened. I'm like, you Solarians have a weird way of. So
this is Asimov being so 1950s that he thinks even these Solarians allow their kids to play with like dangerous toys. Like, we didn't have that shit in the 90s.
It's a sport.
That would have been insane to have let kids run around with bows and arrows. These kids are just
running around shooting bows and arrows at each other.
Because they can do it through the video, because it's just an accuracy. Like, you can't play football. You can't play.
Not just the videos, they also shoot them at the robots.
Well, yeah. But I'm saying, he says that that's why archery is kind of big on Solaria. Of things you can do, like chess, you can do through video. You can have archery tournaments and just see who got the closest, as long as you're the same distance and all that, same targets. But you can't do physical sports, obviously, through Holo. So that's why it's big. But yeah, they go around shooting the robots in the head, which I just love. Like, you guys are...
It's competitive without requiring contact. We have contests amongst the boys using viewing only. Now I'm afraid some of the boys will aim at robots. It amuses them, and it doesn't hurt the robots. I'm the only adult human on the estate, and when the boy saw you, he must have assumed you were a robot.
Yeah, please. Is it close where he keeps going and says... The kid says... She was like, he must have thought... Clearly, he thought you were a robot. And he's like, I didn't think you were a robot.
He goes... Because the kid's name is Bick. He goes, hey, Bick. Hey, Bick. Did you think I was a robot? No, said the youngster. You're an Earthman.
Yeah.
All right.
But triggered a whole nother thing, because how could he know that? But the robot, he finds out that a robot told him that he was an Earthman.
Yeah, he asked the robot that was with him, because the robot comes running over like, I can't believe you almost died. And he's like, how did he know I'm an Earthman? He's like, I told him so.
Mm-hmm.
I was with him, Master. I told him you were an Earthman. Did you tell him what an Earthman was? Yes, Master. What is an Earthman?
Oh, yeah.
An inferior sort of human that ought not be allowed on Solaria because he breeds disease, Master. And who told you that, boy? The robot. The robot maintained silence. Do you know who told you? I do not, Master. It is in my memory store.
Mm-hmm. So this is a part that I want to jump to. Because we know that they were set up by the other guy at the end, but this robot claims that he just picked up the first arrow that, so he didn't put any thought into which arrow he picked to give the kid.
The arrow tip is poisoned.
Yeah.
And Bailey realizes, because he looks at the other arrows comparatively.
So you think, like who handed this to you? Like, clearly somebody gave you this arrow specifically to shoot at me. But the robot claims, no, I just picked an arrow. There wasn't any thought into it.
I mean, would he remember if you told it, here, take this arrow and forget that I gave it to you?
I know that. What do you think of that rule? I don't know if we mentioned that explicitly, but they mentioned that you can just tell a robot to do something and then forget that it did it.
I think it's a little bit of a cop-out.
I know, a little cheating.
On Asimov's end, but...
Because
then I could always just be like, here, take this, it's harmless, forget that it happened.
Yeah. Me and my enemy are playing this funny game called tag. I want you to push him right next to the traffic. I mean, that's a bad example, but then forget it immediately after you do it. Immediately after pushing him or doing this thing that could bring about harm. Immediately forget it.
Well, I find it interesting that Asimov adds this line. Because Bailey says, perhaps you thought I was just an Earthman, not completely a human, and hesitated a bit.
Yeah.
No, Master. It was said with quiet calm, but Bailey's lips quirked grimly. The robot might deny it in all faith, but Bailey felt that was exactly the factor involved. This idea that the robot did think he was inferior. So, because the database of the robot says he's inferior.
Yeah.
That
the just is a fact, yeah.
Kind of allow this to happen because...
But the robot would have to know that it's poisoned and all that.
Which I don't think the robot did, but...
Yeah.
I don't think the robot minded that he might actually get hit with the arrow.
Mm-hmm. Let's do a quick baby break and we'll be right back. We're back. Baby's okay. Raising her the old-fashioned non-Solarian way. But you're saying that the robot might have even had a distaste for humans? I was saying that.
But I don't think it would have been able to go against the third law. It just got tricked into...
Yeah, it's still a human, no matter how gross it is. I was saying something that I'm sure he'll explore in more books, but it's like this idea of trying to protect humans, you can abstract it so much that him being an Earthman could be seen as a disease vector. He might kill off the entire population of Solaria. So it'd be okay to kill him. I don't know. Even when they get into the ships.
The only thing is it still counts as a... I know that the first law in the last book, there is that clause that no one talks about where you can not listen to the first law if killing one person or letting one person die. Not necessarily killing, it still is just...
But it's a simple trolley thingy, like the robot will pull the switch and that switch will kill 5 people. But because it saved 10 people.
Yeah.
So... But like, isn't every... I made the point last time, like, doesn't every dictator at least say that they're doing that? Like, every aggressor in, most, you'd have to be a real psychopath. But most of them have a whole, like, mental thing why they're doing good by killing off all these people. So the robot could just kill off a whole bunch of people if presented with the right, facts.
Logic.
Like, how do they... That's one thing we keep debating, too. And the books don't explore enough. Yet, how do they determine what's a fact?
Well, that's part of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Where, so it's kind of funny. I was just playing devil's advocate because in this scene, Bailey is 100% sure that this arrow was poisoned, and this Clarissa actually is like, "Why? Wait." This arrow can't be poisoned. I shouldn't let you convince me. Why have you suddenly decided that? The robot with Bick, he would never have allowed poison. It's inconceivable that he could have done anything that might bring harm to a human being. The first law of robotics makes sure of it.
Yeah.
So a part of me is like, one, she might be right. Like, technically,
we don't
never
know
get
for
proof
sure
that this arrow was tested or anything.
Yeah, you're saying even in later chapters, it never actually explicitly says that.
It's never explicitly said it's not, it's poisoned or... But, even going along that, let's just assume it was poisoned, the robot could have just been lied to. Like, hey, here, you have to use this arrow on the Earthmen.
Yeah, that's my point.
For whatever reason.
But I think Asimov...
You have to forget, it's just like all the other arrows. But you have to forget that I told you that this arrow has to be shot at the Earthmen.
Can I tell you, this arrow, this elixir I put on it, it makes him, heals all his... It's the wonder miracle liquid.
You don't even have to tell it that there's anything on it.
I know, you don't have to tell him. Yeah. My point is that, and I think Asimov does this on purpose to make it look like, wow, the 3 laws are genius and flawless. But of course, we get a whole series of books exploring little ways that it's not flawless, of course. But... Well,
in the next...
because the robot has to have a knowledge of everything.
By the way, we're in chapter 13.
Okay.
This is 13, a roboticist is confronted.
I haven't worded this explicitly, but I don't understand how they think, like, this isn't challenged enough, that the robot would have to understand what everything is at all times. Like, the knowledge the robot has to have to work perfectly, in quotes.
Well, that's what ends up happening when Bailey confronts a roboticist. He ends up giving the scenario of what he think happened with Gruer, where... Oops, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
One robot...
It's a bit of the force there. We got to do another baby break.
Oh,
we need,
really?
those Solarians.
No.
Okay,
I kind of got my thoughts.
Go.
After the baby break. Sorry.
Go ahead. You're good.
But I don't want to forget. So, damn, it's gone.
No, you were talking about Gruer and like the whole idea that I was saying they have to know everything.
So the next person we're meeting is a roboticist, which. In a side tangent, there are 3 people that we've met so far. The sociologist that was in the room with him for a little while, but was like on the opposite end of the room, and ended up freaking out and having to quit. But he thought it was kind of naughty to be seeing an Earthman.
Yeah.
But he's like interested in Earth, so it kind of made sense. This lady Clarissa, who works at the baby farm.
Yeah.
But she's used to having to interact with the children on occasion. So she's kind of like used to having to deal with people in person. So she feels a little hardened to it.
Yeah.
And the next person that we're going to talk to is literally a roboticist who freaks out so much at the thought of having to be in the same room with someone that he's like sucking his thumb.
Yeah.
All of this.
Actually, like a baby.
Yeah. And all of this connected to later why I'm like, technically we play devil's advocate, but
For what?
we'll get to it.
No, go ahead. Do it now.
So he's going to get pressured later into basically confessing that he's the one that's done all this intricate stuff with the robots for a number of reasons. But if the arrow hadn't ever been poisoned, like he has such a fear of seeing someone, and the thought of
you're saying it could be is torture confession.
Yeah. Could you like scare him into just saying I did it?
I thought the book was going to go that route, that he actually wasn't involved in anything because he admitted to everything.
He could
like
have
babbling
not been
and
involved
screaming
in anything except making the spaceship robot.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to.
Putting a robot brain
spoiler,
into a spaceship.
Technically, but
Oh, well, we talked about the ending already.
yeah, but well, that's kind of like that's such a key.
Mm-hmm.
But so Bailey's gonna talk to this roboticist. He ends up viewing him because he literally goes into like shock on the phone. And when he's viewing him, he's going to actually say exactly the scenario you were saying, where his hypothesis with Gruer, the head of security that was poisoned, is that one robot was told to put a liquid inside, or one robot was told to pour the liquid and to let it sit out for an hour and then bring it to him to drink.
Yeah.
Another robot was told to put a liquid into this cup of water on a table.
Yeah.
That
it actually poured out.
Well, he was just told to put it in and that cup would be poured out later.
Yeah.
That nothing, it wouldn't harm anyone. We're just trying to see the reaction that this chemical would have in this cup of water on a table.
Which was unnecessarily odd. I thought that was such a strange... I was like, Bailey, it doesn't even have to be that specific. And you can make it the opposite. You
in
could
Bailey's
say...
defense, he tells the roboticist, this is just a crude idea, because the roboticist tells him it doesn't...
But I'm like, hey, I'm putting in here his medicine to make him feel better. Here's his vitamins.
It could be anything.
Here's his flavoring.
Well, you could say maybe the robot knows what he likes or doesn't, so...
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is this is a scenario. In quotation marks. So if all these things are met, could a robot technically commit murder on accident?
If you break up the chunks of an action.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to cut the brakes, Robot 1. In Robot 2, I want you to tell my friend to take the car for a drive.
Yeah, like what would seem like two separate innocent actions are put together and make murder.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm going to have my brakes replaced, so take them out, Robot 1. You come up with a bunch of scenarios where you can use, if you just break up the actions, the robot's actions would result in murder. I think he says, like, but they're not the murderer because he fights back, and it's like, okay, but they're the tool for the murder.
I was just looking at...
And you got 20,000 to 1, so we can break these tasks up pretty easily.
You could literally have a robot do each step, and they wouldn't know.
Yeah, and that's true in all the spacer worlds. Like you said, even on Aurora, it's 50 to 1. It's pretty easy. You only need really 2 to do a series of seemingly disjointed actions, unconnected actions.
So the Doctor takes it really personal. So the point that we're at is chapter 14.
And this is Liebig.
Kind of just swimming through this.
Liebig is the roboticist.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on... You said you're on chapter 14? Right?
Yeah, because this part of the conversation is actually in chapter 14.
Okay.
Where Bailey says a robot may do nothing to its knowledge
What
will
page?
harm. Page 175.
Cool.
A robot may do nothing that to its knowledge will harm a human being, nor through an action knowingly allow a human being to come to harm.
Yeah. because Bailey is stressing that there is an implied premise or an implied word that nobody ever remembers. Like,
a robot may perform an innocent task, I suppose, one that has no damaging effect on a human being, if ordered to do so, said Liebig.
Yeah, Liebig. I just Liebig.
Okay. That's the roboticist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course, if ordered to do so. And a second robot may perform an innocent task also, I suppose, one that also can have no damaging effect on a human being, if ordered to do so? Yes. And what if the two innocent tasks, each completely innocent, amount to murder when added together?
Yeah.
Suppose a man says to a robot, place a small quantity of this liquid into a glass of milk, and that you will find in such a place at such a time. The liquid is harmless. I wish only to know its effect on milk. Once I know the effect, the mixture will be poured out. After you have performed this action, forget you have done so. If you had told the robot to add a mysterious liquid to the milk and then offer it to a man, first law would force it to ask, what is the nature of the liquid? Will it harm a man? And if it were assured the liquid was harmless, first law might still make the robot hesitate and refuse to offer the milk. Instead, however, it is told the milk will be poured out. First law is not involved. Won't the robot do as it's told?
Yeah, I get your point.
You see what I'm saying?
The counter to my point. Yeah, I get that he's saying that even if it's unsure, it will always err on not doing something.
Yeah.
So if I say go cut the brakes, it's gonna go, why would I cut the brakes?
Yeah, that seems
but like even I said, like I'm gonna have them replaced today. I'm gonna have Robot 5 come replace my brakes. Can you take them out right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean that has to be done. So
It needs to seem innocent.
Yeah. And so like you said, in this case you could act like it's a laboratory experiment. Like of course it's a dangerous chemical, but the robot thinks it's a lab setting, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and the second
but
robot...
But that's not that hard. It's not that profound and strange to come up with. Like it's kind of funny that this isn't more of a problem.
Well, basically, he presents this problem and the roboticist says, yes, it's possible.
Yeah. It shows, you could argue, I'm making fun of even like the lore of the Asimov universe here, that this is like mind-blowing thought process, that the robots could be exploited like this. But it does show that we don't know how many thousands of years humanity's been living with robots. Like, and they were started off primitive and with so much restriction on them and people being afraid of them that they've only become so relaxed around them after years and years and years of maybe stricter rules and more, like it just shows that the robots really aren't dangerous.
Yeah.
People aren't even thinking about using them like that.
I mean, that we know of, someone might.
But it's a tool. I don't know what to compare to. Like people that think owning guns is crazy. Like, but you own knives. It's like, but a knife could be used to kill everybody in the whole house, anytime, any moment. Like, I mean, like, yeah, but that just doesn't happen.
To your point, there was a section in, I think, chapter 13, where he talks about like what they would have to do to the actual body, like, to counteract the anti-potential triggered through a realization of future good requires enough pass and bypass to increase the mass of the positronic brain by 50% unless other circumstances are sacrificed.
Yeah.
This related to pain inflicted by a robot on a child sets up a powerful disruptive potential in the positronic brain. So like basically in order to get a robot to discipline a child with something like spanking, you have to show it that the spanking will discipline the child in a way that it'll set them up for a positive in the future. But to do that, you have to literally make the brain 50% bigger.
Yeah, it is just a hardware problem, he thinks.
Yeah, like to have enough circuits to get the theory that far out.
Right? No, for sure. But that means like he's kind of confident that this could be done. Like I said, it's not a theoretically impossible thing. It's just a hardware.
I mean, you say that, but he literally says, Bailey says, then you haven't succeeded in building such a robot? No, nor am I likely to succeed, nor anyone.
Yeah, which I guess would tie to the last book where they're like, it would only take 50 years to do this. And so Bailey's like, so obviously somebody would have tried this in thousands of years.
I mean, here's someone that's literally like, I've thought about the way that I could do it, and I literally have not succeeded in doing this.
So I guess it seems
something as simple
possible.
as disciplining a child.
Yeah. only thing I think of is like warp drives. Everybody admits like it's technically all the math makes sense. Physically, we know exactly what we would need to do, but how the hell do you actually build that? And so though it seems simple, the positronic brain, I guess there's just some compounding.
Yeah, to your point, that's how
like we have fission.
Ingrained these laws are in the robots where like...
Yeah. But even like the positronic brain, it's so advanced. We have fission technology. We can split atoms for energy, but fusion, it might seem like that's not such a big leap. Oh, okay, if you can manipulate atoms, then you can just put two together. But for a bunch of reasons, that's qualitatively different. So even a 50% increase in the brain, robo brain, it's for some reason just doesn't work that way.
All right. So, other than some cool stuff on robotics and learning that he was working on robots that could have detached limbs.
Yeah.
A couple things to take away from this
Ding.
we haven't touched on. One, that he has a droopy eye.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's not physically perfect.
Yeah, he's kind of older too. 2, he is a bachelor. He was never connected or associated or paired with a wife, and if he was, he must have said he didn't want one.
Yeah.
That's something that Dr. Delmar, the guy that got killed, even though they were working together because Delmar was interested in a robot that would discipline children, but he was also just interested in robots, and this guy liked Delmar, I guess because he wanted someone to share the interest with.
Yeah.
Even though they were like friends, something happened where they were less friends, and it's rumored that Delmar didn't like this guy's bachelorhood because he's supposed to be the best roboticist on Solaria, so with his brains and genes, he would be pushing the species forward by having a child.
Yeah.
And instead, he doesn't want to have one. And he used to go for walks with Gladia.
Yeah.
Gladia, the wife. They were viewing walks, so they didn't really see each other.
Yeah, not in person.
But he also mentions that her and her husband quarreled, and she hated him.
Yeah. Yeah, she specifically said she hated him.
Yeah.
To their neighbor, but like you said, don't picture next door.
There's no one to like snoop. There's acres and acres and acres between houses, so...
But it is funny that they still have a sense of neighbor.
Yeah, they are. He's the estate right next door to them.
Because she even says, like, it's friendly. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm friendly with my neighbors. And that,
Yeah. Well, he actually says, so it was a little more than just... Because they used to go for, like, these little afternoon walks. And Bailey asked, you approve of her then? Lee Big shrugged. Talking to her was relaxing.
And she supposedly doesn't retain any of the info. He does these whole...
Supposedly. She knew nothing about robotics, ignorant, but she listened. She has some sort of field force rigmarole she plays with. Field coloring, she calls it. I have no patience with that, but I listen.
Yeah.
Were you attracted to her? Did you find her attractive physically? And he just calls her a filthy animal.
Yeah. And the audio version does really good there. Like, there's nothing to compare it to. They're grossed out by physical attract. Well, most are, but she's not. Gladia's not.
Yeah. Well, that's what we find out.
Yeah, from all this. But most people, most Solarians are, and you could see Lee Big as, like I was saying, the whole Gnostic comparison here. He doesn't have a wife. He is the most afraid of seeing, of anybody. He doesn't want human contact, like by far. And in a weird way, he doesn't even want to pass on his genes. He's not even being a good eugenic Solarian.
Yeah. He just wants to build robots.
Which is like a... It's to rise up. What's the famous Warhammer quote? When I realized the weakness of my flesh. Like, he's making a new race in a way. He wants to replace the human race. He doesn't seem to care.
I mean, his way, he's just gonna...
He's gonna die, yeah. He don't even see a future.
I don't know what he just wants to live his little life and die.
Yeah, I think he's just become so interested in the technical challenges of the robot just to make it for the sake of making it.
Alright, we're almost there. We're at chapter 15.
Yeah.
A portrait is colored.
Yeah, this one isn't... It's what you know.
I mean,
more
look,
flirting and cool.
a lot of flirting.
I was mentioning to you earlier, we were talking a little bit about it, but like Halo, the video game series and the books that are really good would play with this. The whole, she does these light, like she's able to turn, she's technically pulling it from hyperspace, they say, and she makes these kind of paintings, but with light. And she's synesthetic, if you guys know what that means, like people that see music and...
yeah, she sees in color.
Yeah, that can... Yeah, what was it
So
when he says Jehoshaphat or something? When he says...
it's a blotch of purple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certain words that he says in people's feelings, she can see their auras kind of like they give off colors and words give off colors, all kinds of stuff.
Couple things to note in this chapter. Basically, we have her being flirty, but we also see her opening up about her obsession with touch. Because... She talks about how she's viewed novels set on outer worlds where they do the seeing all the time, but it's different in novels. It just seems like a multi-view. Do people ever kiss in novels? She flushed painfully. I don't read that kind.
Yeah.
Never? Well, there are always a few dirty films around, and sometimes just out of curiosity, it's sickening, really. Is it? She said it was sudden animation. But Earth is so different, so many people. When you walk, Elijah, I suppose you even touch people. I mean, by accident. And then I highlighted because, like, he's 6 feet away, and, like, so in everywhere else...
he's maintaining social distance.
Right. Everywhere else, he was 20 feet, 20 paces, in a different room, across the room. Never 6 feet is the closest he's been to a Solarian.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
And he said Bailey maintained a careful 6-foot distance between them. At that, it was less than a third the distance Clarissa had demanded.
Yeah.
Who
works with kids.
I did feel vindicated. I was like, pretty sure this is like the closest he's been to anyone. So to hear that it was a third of the distance that literally the lady that works at the baby farm that was hardened to people was okay with, I was like, ha! Thank you, Asimov.
I love the term hardened to people. You would think that means the opposite, that she's hardened against people. No. They mean that she's so tough, she's used to the burden, the
she can
impact.
Actually see you.
Yeah, she's tough enough to be in person with kids. To be fair, that's a bit tough. Anybody that's worked with kids.
Freddie used to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So they're like, they're hanging out, and she asked if he wants to see her art, and he's like, yeah, I would like to. And she goes, all right, and half ran to a light figure in one corner, passing within inches of him as she did so. She did not seem to notice. Not just see her art. She asked if she can make like a improv little piece portrait
about him. Yeah.
And so he said, don't you have a robot to do this closing contacts? Because it's like a bunch of contacts, and she's just like playing with light. And she goes, shush now. She said impatiently, I don't keep robots in here. This is me. Mm-hmm. So this is, and she's one of the only artists on the planet, by the way, because this art is like an up and coming thing.
Yeah, I don't know if finish with that.
I just kept on trying. It's a new art form, and only one or two really know how. Mm-hmm. And you're the best, said Bailey somberly. On Solaria, everyone is either the only or the best or both. Yeah,
which is hilarious callback to Bander in book 5, right? Foundation. Remember, I forgot what farm. He had some sort of farm.
I have the best estate. I have the best. I have the biggest, the best.
Like peaches, I think, or something it was. There was some fruit that he had the best, something like that. Some fruit, he had an orchard, and it was the best on the whole planet.
What it feels like something like pineapples or
figs,
it might be
almost.
Peaches or
I think it was peaches.
Oranges, something like.
Point is that he has the best, but even they caught on to that, back then.
Like, you're everything you do is the best.
Mm-hmm, so they make that same point consistent here, and I don't think I finished my point, but it is cool in the Halo universe. If you guys know it, the hard light, those bridges you walk across. So, not that she's playing with hard light, but the idea of like this light manipulation, I thought they were going to do a whole thing in this book about that. I thought that was going to be such a huge part. That was so odd. One of my theories was that she literally was manipulating the hollow projections. Like, what if you made hollow projection? That's where I thought the book was going to go. That the murder was going to be if you could make, and I thought that her job meant, before this whole scene, I thought that her job was that she was like a projection artist, like a making, you know, like nowadays you can make backgrounds for your Teams meetings or whatever, for your Skypes. Like,
that's hilarious.
Like, I thought that one of the jobs there would be to make, you know, cool altered reality, augmented reality displays, because that's how it works in Halo. The same shit that runs the bridges that you can walk on, hard light. The furniture in Forerunner, like buildings, shit on the wall, it all looks realistic, just like in this book. And so it's cool. It must be based on this because it's just light projections, but it literally, I guess it's more than here a little bit. You can touch it and it looks though like real artwork on the wall, or a real, so your wall might just be a sterile steel or concrete, you know, thing, but there's all these projections in there that
reminds me of Psycho Pass. We mentioned this anime, but all the people, like the main character lives in this little concrete box, but she can have the computer like make it like,
yeah, that is that. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's cool.
It is really cool.
And in their clothes even. Remember, she like changes their outfit because it's just light projections.
Just look up like Psycho Pass and her like room.
Yeah. So I thought he really not dropped the ball, but I was surprised. So I thought that the way the murder could work is if you trick the robot, even because they play such with Bailey being so blown away that this is real, true to life. You can't tell the difference between a person in the flesh and in the projection. Yeah,
Bailey does give that scenario when he's kind of like walking through how the murder could have happened.
Yeah, but like you could have had multiple projecting people, like fake people, or even people that wanted to, for some reason, get this guy killed and act like, oh my god, he's gonna kill us, robot, help. Like, and the robot would kill the guy. Just ways to play with those rules of of protecting people, the whole utilitarian aspect.
That seems like an obvious way to...
Yeah, but I'm just like, this whole light work thing doesn't have anything to do with the projections.
No, this is just her flirting.
I know, it's just so funny.
This
I was
is
like,
literally a chapter of her flirting, because what she's going to do is she's going to paint him, and it's like basically the reverse of the Titanic, like paint me like one of your French women.
So he's sitting there
So he's sitting there and she paints his aura, and it's like blue because Earth is more blue, and then she's going to put gray and box the entire aura in gray.
You have such a wall up around you.
Yep.
That's basically what she says, not a quote.
Well, so the whole point of that whole gray is why the wall's about you. That's what's most in you, the way you can't go outside, the way you have to be inside. You are inside there, don't you see? Bailey saw and somehow he disapproved. He said, those walls aren't permanent. I've been outside today.
Yeah.
Have you? Did you mind? Do you want to come out now with me for a walk? Bailey looked at his abstractionist portrait and said, if I go, will you take away the gray? She said, she smiled and said, I'll see how you behave. The structure of light remained as they left the room. It stayed behind, holding Bailey's imprisoned soul fast in the gray of the cities.
Yeah.
It's like, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And she is taunting him out to go walking, where she knows from all her little movies, her little books.
While they're out there, she starts to tell him, she's like, you know, because she's dressed in this very formal thing, like dress, and you can't really see her skin other than like around her face. And so they're walking, and she's like, oh, in the summer, it's so pretty. I basically come running out here in like underwear and a bra, and I just like run around. And I used to do the viewing calls with my neighbor, the roboticist, in like underwear and a bra, you know.
And sometimes skinny dip was implied.
Well, so whenever he would get frustrated because she would basically
not understand the robot stuff.
She wouldn't get the concept, the robot stuff. She would jump into the lake and splash water at the viewing screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Bailey thought he caught her. He's like, wait, you said it was just viewing. She's like, yeah, but I mean, he still jumps, like, still splashing at you. You know, it's all these realistic projections.
Oh, yeah, wait, it's halter and shorts at the most, she cried, lifting her arms as though feeling the freedom of that in her imagination. Sometimes less, sometimes just sandals so you can feel the air with every inch.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry I've offended you.
What a hussy.
Was that your costume when you went walking with Dr. Lebig?
Yeah.
It varied. It depended on the weather. Sometimes I wore very little, but it was viewing, you know? You do understand, I hope.
Yeah. Because she knows she's playing him, like talking about being naked and frolicking in the woods.
Not one thing, nothing. Because he asked, did you learn anything? Not one thing, nothing. It's just all a complete mix-up to me. He'd get angry with me sometimes, but when he'd scold, I'd dive into the water if we were anywhere near the lake and splash him. Splash him? I thought you were viewing. She laughed. You're such an earthman. I'd splash where he was standing in his own room or on his own estate. The water couldn't touch him, but he would duck just the same. Look at that.
Yeah.
Because you actually pointed a random thing out.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to get into him. Because that's what we need all this for, is for Bailey to pass out.
Well, basically, so they're outside, and Bailey's out here with this woman who's talking about how she's always running around naked. And then he looks up, and he sees that the sun is setting, and he's like, does it always get that low? And he's like, that was in his head, literally, he's like, that was a stupid question.
Yeah.
Of course it does. The earth spins.
Yeah.
Then he's thinking about the earth spinning, and basically he gets overwhelmed and he passes out. And in passing out, he doesn't know that Daniil has literally appeared on the scene and caught him.
Yeah. Yeah, in typical, I don't know what you want to call it, cheesy movie fashion, he literally shows up right when he was falling down. He catches him before he falls, but he was going to fall into the water and drown, Daniil explains. I think he explains that in the next chapter, right? In 17.
Yeah, he does.
So 17, we get Bailey. Bailey would have died if Daniil wasn't there. So Daniil thinks she was trying to kill him.
Basically, what happened was that this bench that she was telling him to sit next to her on, if he would have fallen back in the direction he was falling, he would have fallen into a 3-foot pond. And Daniil is positive she would have left his ass there. Because
she didn't react. She wasn't moving to catch him.
He also brought up to her, he was like, I heard that you used to hate your husband.
Yeah, that's true.
Her hands became fists and held so in a tight spasm. Her body held stiffly to its position, head bent and a little to one side, her voice unnaturally high. What quarrels?
So she's trying to lie and deny that, and then he passes out, and she makes no effort to rescue him.
One of the key things here is Bailey said, you are affectionate. On the other hand, you find a man interesting. Do you understand? I can't help it. I know it's disgusting, but I can't help it. It's even disgusting to talk about. You did talk about it to Dr. Lebig, though. I had to do something, and Jonathan was handy, and he didn't seem to mind, and it made me feel better. You hussy.
Yeah, exactly. About how he's not intimate.
Yeah, because basically...
Because her husband was just trying to work.
She just was always... She was frustrated. She wanted him to be... She wanted to have sex.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't know how else to put it.
I'm saying it for what it is.
Oh.
Sometimes I hated him, she shrugged her shoulders helplessly. He was just a good Solarian, and we weren't scheduled for
Yeah.
She broke down.
She can't even say children.
We were quarreling that time, the time he died, the old quarrel. I screamed at him, but he never shouted back. He hardly ever said anything, and that just made it worse. I was so angry. I don't remember after that. What do you mean you don't remember?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, he was dead, and I was screaming, and the robots came. Did you kill him? I don't remember it, Elijah, and I would remember if I did, wouldn't I? Only I don't remember anything else either, and I've been so frightened. Help me, please, Elijah. You're my only hope.
What page is that?
197.
Okay. I went back. Okay.
Yeah, I went back a little bit because I felt that was important. 16 is a solution is offered.
Yeah, okay.
So that's where Daniil explains, how he got away from the robots.
I thought she said somewhere in there that she said that he was killing me.
No.
You're killing me. No?
No.
I'm misremembering that? Okay.
Yeah. Not over there.
Yeah, okay, that's in the future.
I don't know if she does, it would probably be where they're actually get everyone together, because basically Bailey wakes up and he's in a room with Daniil, and he's, I think, happy to see Daniil. So he's like, how the heck did you get out of the house? And Daniil's like,
Yeah.
I had to be very cunning. Your order to the robots that held me prisoner was, in your words, do not allow him, meaning myself, to establish contact with other humans or other robots, either by seeing or viewing. However, partner Elijah, you said nothing about forbidding other humans or robots to contact me. You see the distinction?
Yeah. Daniil's great.
So he basically is like, I received a phone call from Gladia looking for you. I accepted the call. And then I gave her the impression, I believe, that as an Auroran, I was not as accustomed to robots as she was, that she might deliver the orders with greater authority and effect a more speedy consummation. Solarians, it is quite clear, are vain of their skill with robots and contemptuous of the ability of natives of other planets to handle them. Is that not your opinion as well, partner Elijah? Because he basically, when she called, he was like, oh, Gladia, how's it going? And she was like, I'm looking for Elijah. Have you seen him? And he was like, no, I haven't. I've actually been looking for him.
Yeah.
Do you think you could have these robots? Because for whatever reason, I can't figure out how to get them to understand what I'm trying to tell them.
Yeah.
Can you have them search the premises for Elijah? And I'll go looking for him outside the house?
Yeah, to have a human give the order.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah. And then technically, with difficulty, they protested previous orders, but of course could not state the nature thereof, since you had ordered them to tell no one of my own true identity. She overrode them, although the final orders had to be shrilled out in fury.
Yeah. Which is great. And also, because remember, Daniil is the first of his kind in a new robot recently built.
I was very proud of Daniil. Good job, bud.
But he's also lying so cleverly. There's just a string of lies since the last book. I mean, it's so funny that
he's getting better at it.
That doesn't deny, it doesn't go against the 3 laws to be creative in lying. So he tells Elijah that it took him a while to find him because the robots on this planet are all connected by radio. The robots on Solaria have a network of information through subetheric contact. A skilled Solarian could obtain information readily, but mediated as it is through millions of individual machines, one such as myself, without experience in the matter, must take time to unearth a single datum. It was better than an hour before the information as to your whereabouts reached me. I lost further time by visiting Delmar's place of business after you had departed. What were you doing there? Pursuing researches of my own. I regret that this had to be done in your absence, but the existence of the investigation left me no choice. Yeah.
So, at this point, to get everyone on the same page, current suspects.
Yeah.
We have the acting head of security that wanted to disband the entire... we didn't talk about this, but when he took over, he was like, you guys can leave. I don't actually want you to do this case.
Yeah.
And he was like, Bailey was like, I'm not going anywhere, so tough it out.
I saw a critique of him as a character. What do you think? He was so aggressive, so... the Asimov just almost like a cheap red herring. He's so aggressive towards Bailey. He's so... shut this down. Go away. There's no murder to solve.
I suspected him for a millisecond.
Because it's why is he not bothered that his superior was just poisoned when poisoning isn't even a thing? Nobody knows what that is. Murder isn't a thing. A police department isn't a thing on Solaria.
I literally suspected him for a millisecond, and then he never is connected with anyone or comes up, and I was like, yeah, it's not him.
Yeah.
There's Gladia the wife, who's looking awfully sus with her flirting. There's Clarissa, the
robot farm lady.
The robot farm lady that was the assistant.
Nobody really suspects her.
I kind of don't.
Yeah.
There's the sociologist, which I also don't suspect, who just used to play chess with Delmar. The roboticist, which also looks awfully sus because he's always nervous.
Yeah.
Droopy-eyed. And coincidentally, the last suspect that we haven't talked about is the doctor, Dr. Thule. And what's going to come out in this whole conversation with Daniil is that he technically is the father of the wife, Gladia.
Yeah.
So this
and he
doctor
knows that, like,
because he's a doctor, he was privy. He was able to find out that he was, and he was allowed access to his daughter.
Yeah. Which is that return, like you said, these societies go so far to get away from just natural bonds and ties. And, you know, it's a classic sci-fi thing to do to show, like, I don't know, some way that still comes back.
So Daniil suspects that he helped cover it up. And
yeah, because if it's his own daughter committing the murder,
they
get into the whole thing about hiding the murder weapon.
In support of what Daniil says, he's like really nervous. So what's going to happen is that Bailey's going to tell Daniil he's figured out what and who, what's going on, and that the next day they're going to have a big meeting and they're going to call all the suspects in on viewing, and they're going to go over it. And he's going to have Daniil go on a special mission.
Yeah.
So he calls everyone up, and it's just him, and he's buying time, and he's going through all these scenarios, and I believe that's in the next chapter.
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, Asimov's setting up perfect cliffhangers at the end of his chapter.
Yeah.
Where basically, it was literally Clue. It's a game of Clue in space.
Basically.
He got all his little characters there, and he's going to go about accusing them, and what? No. A proper murder mystery scenario.
So they just need the murder weapon. So, basically Gladia right now is under house arrest, but she's able to do the viewing, so she's there. The acting head of security's there, which, by the way, it comes out in this chapter that the actual head of security is recovering, and looks like he'll make a full recovery. He just can't be here for the meeting because he's still on the up and up.
Yeah.
Basically, all the people I just named are here. And we got the assistant kind of like doing an audible sniff toward Gladia. Dr. Thule, the physician, appeared last. He looked haggard, almost sick.
Who was the guy that was the sociologist, right? That was such a weirdo?
He was the one that was like, he had like a naughty, like, we did something
I know.
It's bad.
Yeah, literally like a look. Like as if they had hanky-pank. But because it was so, like you say, naughty, it is so...
Yeah, Quimont,
they have
the
a special bond because they saw each
tired,
other.
But smiling at Bailey out of deep-set eyes in a condescending way, as though to say, we have seen one another.
Brother,
we have been intimate.
Yeah, like that is funny. I mean, it makes sense within their society, but it was a good detail.
But that, like I said...
Who's the guy? Is it him? Damn it. One of these guys, if you're Mass Effect fans out there, we made the point last time, the Solarian species, Mordin Solus, based on Solaria, because they're gene experts too, genetic engineers. One of the characters in the audiobook, I know, right? I am members of a scientist, Solarian. He talks just like it in the book, because one of these guys... Maybe it's the murderer. Well, spoiler.
The roboticist?
Yeah, maybe somebody talks super rapid and quick, and they're like annoyed too a little bit, but they talk really quick.
The roboticist starts to get really annoyed.
Yeah. So like talks really fast, and this and that, and this and that.
As Bailey starts kind of like laying out what's going on, he kind of like said, he shows everyone how they all could have had motive, where some motives were like weaker than the other ones. He talks about how all of them had opportunity because the viewing technology is so realistic that even Gladia wasn't sure that Thule was actually in person with her when she awoke from her fainting spell, and realized he was actually seeing her when he touched her and she felt his touch. So he does those, and he finally ends on the only thing we're missing is the murder weapon. If an outsider was a murderer, he would have to be a complete imbecile not to leave the weapon with the corpse to convict Mrs. Del Mar. Either way, then, the weapon must be there, yet it was not seen. I take you for Solarians, and Bailey said calmly, and therefore incapable of recognizing the particular weapon that was left at the scene of the crime as a weapon. Isn't it obvious, then, that in having eliminated the impossible, what remains, however improbable, is the truth? The robot at the scene of the crime was a murder weapon none of you could recognize by force of your training. So he claims...
But you saw that, right? I mean, what did you think? Because I did read it before, and for some reason, remembering that the robot was what killed him, essentially. The robot.
I mean...
piece. Like, I was like, come on. I mean, it is obvious. There's nothing else in the room. There's a robot in the room. I mean...
I feel like it's actually still kind of up for debate.
It could have just been something hidden, because that was Daniil's point. Okay, Daniil said that the murder weapon was just hidden by somebody.
They claim... So at the end of all of this, what's going to happen is that Dr. Liebig was known for having experimentation with robots with replaceable limbs, where they could take them off.
Yeah.
Put them
Which
back
he denied
on.
at first, and then...
No, he didn't. He never really denied... He kind of denied that he was doing that with this guy. But
yeah.
The theory is that he sent one of these robots with a detachable limb, not even to the guy necessarily, but to Gladia, I guess.
Yeah. And
in her anger, she detached the arm of the robot and smashed her husband's head in.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Why? She's a hussy. She's a Jezebel.
I know, but I actually think she would have just hit him with some other thing and the robots cleaned it up.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me that she would take the robot's arm apart. And to back up what I'm saying, when Bailey goes back to Earth, or later, and I think when he's talking to her, they basically tell, it comes out that they searched Liebig's stuff, and they did find proof that he had those types of robots.
Yeah. Yeah, where the arm comes off.
That doesn't mean that the robot, that doesn't prove that the exact robot that he received from that place had a removable arm.
Yeah. A part of me was...
I'm just
saying. They
saying.
make a whole big thing about his stomach in the Caves of Steel. Like you said, eating was such a theme, and then...
He's always eating
describing his stomach. Yeah, and describing... They bring it up again in this book that... remember Daniil has that stomach thing to eat, but I'm like, all right, but the regular robots don't. But I was remembering in Bender from Futurama, like his little stomach opens up, a little door. Yeah. I was like, yeah, there's like a hammer in the stomach of the robot. I order you to swallow this or something. But they don't have. I don't think the regular robots have that. That was just so that Daniil could go undercover as a person. The theory was
also that Thule helped get rid of a weapon.
Yeah. That because it's his daughter, so. But Bailey kind of crushed that. He's like, he would be so stressed out. He wouldn't be doing that. What are you thinking?
I was just trying to find...
Yeah, where they're talking about the testing.
It's later. But basically, we get to chapter 18, which, ironically, one of the characters, when this whole meeting starts, are like, will this speech be very long? I was like, yes.
Yeah, really. There is
yes,
Asimov style, pal. Buckle up. This is the last chapter of the book, chapter 18.
Yeah.
Like you said.
So basically, Bailey turns and he claims that the doctor has to be the one that did it. And he tells the doctor that it all has to do with the fact that Dr. Delmar, the guy that was murdered, found out that the doctor was messing with the positronic brains. If a robot could be told that the opposing spaceship had no humans aboard, because he knew that the doctor confessed he was kind of like experimenting with inanimate objects having positronic brains like the robots. So one of these things being a spaceship. So if a robot could be told that the opposing spaceship had no humans aboard, it could be told that it was an uninhabited planet that was being it's an uninhabited planet that's being bombarded. That would be difficult to manage. A robot could see that its own ship carried humans. It would know its own world held humans. It would assume that the same was true of enemy ships and worlds. It would take a real expert in robotics, such as you, Dr. Liebig, to handle them properly in that case, and there are very few such experts. But a spaceship that was equipped with its own positronic brain could cheerfully attack any ship it was directed to attack. It seems to me, it would naturally assume all the other ships are unmanned. So
because it was uniquely the one with the brain.
Yeah, but also because it doesn't know any better. Like,
yeah,
in this case, the ship would just be a ship. It wouldn't have people running it. It would just have a brain that would run the entire ship. So why would it think that other ships are not like it?
Yeah. It's a piece of furniture. It's not an animate thing like another robot or human.
Exactly. So one ship with a positronic brain could defeat fleets of ordinary ships.
And remember, these are not, like we compared, these are not United States. We say that Aurora is the capital of the Spacers, but it's more like we say the cultural capital.
Yeah. Which, this is what Bailey suspects Aurora sent Daniil to investigate. That.
Yeah, they sniffed this out somehow.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Which points at such a larger intel. They knew about the terrorist secret society on Earth.
Yeah, and now they know about this.
Mm-hmm. So
dang, Aurora.
That has to be through robots. That's the only thing they have in common. Like common robots somehow, or probes they just sent out, listening device. I don't know, some sort of software collecting thing, like through the robots that are communicating with each other. I don't know.
I mean, they might have other Daniils.
Yeah.
Out there.
Which would be foreshadowing for the Foundation tinkering with the Earth history. But they say that Daniil's the first one. Yeah, but that could just be a lie. You get into that, it gets kind of funky. I don't want everything. Oh, that was a lie. Actually, we got a million Daniils. We just told you that.
Yeah, you're right.
And I thought about it.
I forgot Daniil was the first.
Yeah, because they stress that's what's so weird about it. That's why even the Solarians, they never find out he's a robot, right? Even after this meeting. Yeah.
She literally leaves the planet thinking Daniil has a lot of pull.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we're going to get to in this conversation that.
Well, first, let's get to the end of. So basically, speech. After he's told the doctor's like, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. And so he says, listen, you're going to be restrained. Mm-hmm. And the doctor freaks out. His eyes widen and staring holes into his head. Someone coming here. Personal presence? No. The second no was a shriek. You will not be harmed, said Bailey coldly, if you cooperate. But I won't see him. I can't see him. The roboticist fell to his knees without seeming aware of the motion. He put his hands together in a desperate clasp gesture of appeal. What do you want? Do you want a confession? Delmar's robot had detachable limbs. Yes. I arranged Gruer's poisoning. I arranged the arrowmet for you. I even planned the spaceships as you said. I haven't succeeded, but yes, I planned it. Only keep that man away from me. Don't let him come. Keep him away. Perfect. He was babbling.
Let's pause there. Baby break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Baby break. Kind of cut up the quote there, but what were you saying?
I was saying you're right.
Oh, you heard it here first, folks. What a moment in history you got to be a part of. Wow.
Because as there's movement out off the screen as they're viewing the roboticist, he says, away, go away, don't come, please. He scrambled away on hands and knees. Then his hand went suddenly to a pocket in his jacket. It came out with something and moved rapidly to his mouth. Swaying twice, he fell prone. Bailey wanted to cry, you fool! It isn't a human that's approaching, only one of the robots you love. Daniil Lavoie darted into the field of vision and for a moment stared down at the crumpled figure. Bailey held his breath. If Daniil should realize it was his own pseudo-humanity that had killed Lebig, the effect on his first law enslaved brain might be drastic.
Yeah.
But Daniil only knelt and his delicate fingers touched Lebig here and there. Then he lifted Lebig's head as though it were infinitely precious to him, cradling it, caressing it. His beautifully chiseled face stared out at the others, and he whispered, a human is dead.
A human is dead. Like you say, just in case people didn't hear you fully, Bailey wanted to say, oh, I wasn't going to say that. You said it.
But he didn't blow his cover.
Yeah, he didn't. He wanted to.
It was also too late. He'd already taken the shit. The pills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we're going to use that to act like he did everything, that he just was the murderer. And all the other people accept that.
Yeah.
Like, which I get, they don't even really care about the investigation to begin with.
So, other roboticists went over his records and found experiments toward unmanned intelligent spaceships. They also found other robots with replaceable limbs. That's all we get.
And that's such a big threat that nobody really cares about this murder.
Yeah. But
he was trying to start a robot coup.
I'm just going to go ahead and say this.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't actually, although Asimov basically is really pressuring for us to believe it, we never got proof that the arrowhead was poisoned. We don't know what, other than the motive of killing off the investigation so that they don't find out what he's working on, what motive would he have had to kill these people?
Yeah.
And
he's really acting alone.
We don't know that, we have no confirmation that the robot that was destroyed or that became inoperable had the ability to replace limbs.
Yeah, that she actually bashed the husband over the head with.
That's still the leading, when he goes back to Earth, that's still like the leading theory.
Yeah.
That it did have a limb that
Everybody's
could be removed.
assuming that, yeah.
And in her anger, she had the robot give her the limb and smash the guy across the head with it.
She would know that from the talks with him, in the woods when they would walk and talk. So she could know about the robots that have that ability.
I mean, he gave them the robot.
Yeah.
I think he even gave it to her or some shit.
We also don't get an explicit address. All that build up on the robot saying like, "You're gonna kill me. You're gonna kill me. You're gonna kill me." That was such a huge. That seemed like that was gonna be a way that this murder came about. I thought for sure he was gonna play with that line. Somehow manipulated the 3 laws. Because like if I say you're gonna kill me, the robot has to decide. Is it going to stop you from killing me?
I mean, what corrupted the robot was that if I give you my limb because you just asked for it and then you use it to kill someone.
Yeah. He's complicit in the murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would be his action that led to the death of that human.
Yeah, I swear I heard somewhere, I don't know where I'm remembering this in the book. Don't make fun of my memory. That, like, she felt like he was killing her, like, spiritually. Like...
I mean, that's not, but it is kind of said that she's like a very intimate.
Because who do you think said, "You're going to kill me"?
The actual guy that was killed. Yeah,
I know. I think that's... You could think, but she could be saying that. Like, she could have been screaming that, like, losing her mind when she says she blacks out. We also don't... We just got her word that she lost her memory.
I have a feeling it was him.
Yeah. Because she's playing with, like, this whole... she wants to go live among people. She wants to go where the people are.
So later on, I mean...
Is she just Ariel?
Just because we have to, we get this whole scene where her and Bailey, like... Which I thought that was the most abrupt thing. We find out that this guy's dead, and then Bailey was expecting her. She had asked for a last interview, but his eyes widened when she appeared. He said, I'm seeing you. So, like, literally it goes from that. There's just, like, a paragraph break, and then he's, like, hanging out with Gladia. And she's, like, 10 paces away from him, and she's, like, basically wanting to get close to him.
Yeah.
Because they're talking about Lebig, and he's saying that Lebig was afraid of people. He killed himself to avoid personal presence, and he was ready to kill other worlds to make sure that Solaria and its personal presence, taboo, would never be touched.
Because it points at the weakness of these spacers. They're not some perfect, Eden
that comes
state.
Later, but
well, I'm saying that like that this guy knows that they could be conquered too one day.
Yeah.
Like spacers could fight each other. Like he could be
also
imposed and captured
anyone
in person.
in Solaria can decide we need to go backward.
Yeah, that too. But if you are stuck on living like that, disconnected from the world, you do need to impose that on your neighbors and everybody else, like you said, and then your own society, because you literally are going to have a mental breakdown if anybody comes to invade you.
Yeah.
And not be able to take up that fight too.
You're invading me in person?
Yeah, you got to be proactive though too.
You should just call me from space.
Let's just fight. Let's just do a chess video game online battle.
But basically they're talking and she's like, "Oh my god, you're gonna think this is so naughty of me, but may I touch you? I'll never see you again, Elijah." And he's like, "If you want to." And then she like step by step gets close to him and stop 3 feet away. And then like it's this very long scene where she's like taking off her glove and her hands trembling And her hand touches his hand, and then it flies to his cheek. And she says, "Thank you, Elijah, goodbye." He said, "Goodbye, Gladia," and watched her leave. Even the thought that a ship was waiting to take him back to Earth did not wipe out the sense of loss he felt at that moment.
Wow.
Huh.
Not nice. Yeah.
So he comes back home. Then we immediately jump to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking to the same guy that sent him away.
Yeah.
And
The Washington, I don't know, head of police, of the whole super head of police.
He promised him, if we are not C7,
I know, right? You're gonna riot.
I'm having a riot.
We're going to the Asimov.
I will be putting. I don't know. I'm going to Asimov's grave.
No, I don't want to say it.
I'm just literally gonna be like, why? Why didn't you let Bailey just have C7? Even if you have him leave his wife to go chase his girl on some other planet, you could have left his wife C7.
Mm-hmm. He should be C8.
I don't even know if they have that class.
Jump. He's gonna be basking in the solarium after Solaria. Remember the upper floors? They had the glass so you could have the real sun. It won't exactly be the naked sun, but it'll be close.
So he comes home and the guy's like, your report really just had talked about that murder and how you solved it. But we sent you up there to keep an eye out and look for weaknesses and be a spy for us. And Bailey's like, I remember. And
that's Daniil's job too, bucko.
Yeah, that's everyone sent there was a spy.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically tells him, look, what I learned is that for the same reason that we think the Solarians are so high and mighty and superior, it's literally all the weaknesses are from there too.
Yeah. And Earth, there's a whole big comparison with Earth. That Earth has the same flaws as Solaria.
And there's a big push to go out to space.
You could say it's almost a parallel with the spacer guy last time that was saying we both have population issues.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, now we have intimacy issues.
That was fast off.
Yeah. But in this time, they're realizing that, look, Solaria and Earth both have intimacy issues in the sense of Solaria doesn't want to be with anybody, whereas Earth wants everybody to be on top of each other. Mm-hmm. Everybody's all communal. We're too communal, and they're too isolationist.
It's the two extremes.
Mm-hmm.
He says they gave up the tribe, but that's...
Oh, you gotta find that quote. Where is that? We too gotta read that one.
Which one?
The tribe quote.
The tribe, sir. Cooperation between individuals. Solaria has given it up entirely. It is a world of isolated individuals, and the planet's only sociologist is delighted that this is so. The sociologist, by the way, never heard of sociomathematics because he's inventing his own science. There's no one to teach him, no one to help him, no one to think of something he himself might miss. The only science that really flourishes on Solaria is robotics, and there are only a handful of men involved in that. And when it came to an analysis of the interaction of robots and man, they had to call in an Earthman to help. Solarian art, sir, is abstract. We have abstract art on Earth as one form of art, but on Solaria it is the only form. The human touch is gone. The look for future is one of ectogenesis and complete isolation from birth.
Mm-hmm.
It all sounds horrible, but is it harmful? I think so. Without the interplay of human against human, the chief interest in life is gone. Most of the intellectual values are gone. Most of the reason of living is gone. Viewing is no substitute for seeing. The Solarians themselves are conscious that viewing is a long-distance sense. And if isolation isn't enough to induce stagnation, there is the matter of their long lives. On Earth, we have a continuous influx of young people who are willing to change because they haven't had time to grow hard-set in their ways. I suppose there's some optimum. A life long enough for real accomplishment and short enough to make way for youth, at a rate that's not too slow. On Solaria, the rate is too slow.
Yeah. Which might seem subjective, but this is what Gaia loses too. This interplay, this, fighting, hashing out things, and whether it's literal combat or debate or civilizations.
Basically Earth is excited. His response to Bailey is, Solaria cannot possibly correct its stagnation. It has passed a critical point and their dependence on robots has gone too far. individual robots can't discipline an individual child, even though discipline may do the child eventual good. The robot can't see past the immediate pain, and robots collectively cannot discipline a planet by allowing its institutions to collapse when the institutions have grown harmful. They can't see past the immediate chaos. So the only end for the outer worlds is perpetual stagnation, and Earth will be freed of their domination. This new data changes everything. Physical revolt will not even have to be necessary. Freedom will come of itself.
Yeah. Which people talk about nowadays with real world, places. There's a equation, funny enough, social equation, on that it does drop off. Like it starts to drop off your birth rates. So it seems linear, like you're just getting lower and lower and lower. But after a certain rate, you can't restock it. Basically, you have a sharp drop off after a certain, too long.
You're in trouble.
Civilizational drop off. So that's what they're talking about here. That eventually won't their whole civilization collapse from this weird robot dependency. Especially since you got this one random guy who was able to threaten their whole robot safety. And violate this, if you could have a slave revolt of robots.
It's a pretty fragile society.
They both, like I said, Earth is too in some ways, and so are these guys, because they're not human maximalists either. They're both like out of fear. They're both not really good humanists.
Earth right now
don't believe in...
Is fearful.
Yeah, but being prosperous, being multiplying and being prosperous and spreading throughout the stars. These guys just hang out in their little house, calling each other.
They're burrowing, whereas the other Solaria is just isolating. Earth is just burrowing their society into ground.
Yeah.
Like into the caves of steel. Not literally, because the domes are not actually, but...
Yeah, but there are still tunnels, all the tunnels in there. Some of it is underground. But do you have any predictions for the next one? Because we played with the two populations.
He says here, he did, but he knew nothing about the outer worlds firsthand, and he was no sociologist. Not really. I thought I made that clear. Our own men will check. They'll lack data too. We know nothing about the really big outer worlds. Aurora, for instance, Daniil's world. Yeah. To me, it doesn't seem reasonable to expect them to be anything like Solaria. In fact, there's only one world in the galaxy which resembles, and then later at some point he says, "Send me." Yeah,
that's what you're talking about, where he asks to go to the same planet that Galadia is going to, but it's going to be Daniil's home world, essentially.
And to my point, where I feel that he just kind of forced this. I intended to force a confession, sir. I had no anticipation suicide at the approach, ironically, of someone who was only a robot and who would not really be violating the taboo against personal presence. Yeah.
Which is a cool nod to a weird victory for Daniil. He was seen as... It doesn't really count. He didn't even look at him. He's just hearing that he was coming. I
honestly think it was a kind of CIA move for him to just be like, look, it turns out this guy's doing something that Daniil and I both agree is a problem. Whether this lady killed him or not, because her behavior was he ends up saying that her behavior was very psychotic for that planet. Yeah. Where she wants to be around people.
That she should have been triggered by these safeguards they have against deviant behavior. Whether that's genetic abnormalities or mental, abnormalities. How do you have one guy that is so afraid of seeing a person that he takes himself out, and one person that is going nuts from not seeing people enough? So it also, is a cool testament to you cannot get this perfectly finagled. If I can just get all the variables right, I can set up the perfect society. Like I was mentioning before, whether it's Gnostics or Plato with the Republic and how they don't even know who their parents are, like the kids. Like you mix it all up. Yeah. That just doesn't work. That's Asimov critiquing that both we're going to keep trying to make these things work, like human civilization to keep going forward, but that's just not going to be perfect. And the more further away you get from our natural state, like Bailey over here is making the thing like, look, the natural struggle, the dharma from, some Hindu kind of concepts that you're just supposed to play your role and do your thing. Whereas this is such a odd, artificial, we're going to make up the rules that go against our entire evolutionary history. But like you said, Aurora doesn't seem to have that.
I have no idea what Aurora's like.
Yeah.
I just know that Bailey's probably in love with that lady. And,
so
and now we have a
whole
disillusion
romance
for Bailey's. Now that he's returned, the city was no longer his. The caves of steel were alien. This had to be, and it would be so for others, and Earth would be born again and reach outward.
Yeah.
That's on the last.
Another amazing quote, yeah. Yeah,
he
I do love
lifted
that.
his head and he could see through all the steel and concrete and humanity above him. He could see the beacon set in space to lure men outward. He could see it shining down, the naked sun.
Yep, I love it. The sun as a literal beacon of flame, like Prometheus's flame or the Statue of Liberty, like calling you out there to go into space, to realize that all those other stars are suns that you could build countless worlds around. Do not have limited thinking.
Yeah, even though like the majority of this book was wrapped up around this really fun murder to solve.
Yeah, there's tons of lore and important things for the Asimov universe and the future of the robot series.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, too, it's really about going back home, realizing that the spacers are going to be extinct, and we really need to leave.
Yeah, but he's...
like, we're a lot closer to the spacers than you think.
Yeah, the spacers is a hole in this... the image of their perfection has been... You know, they don't... Bailey, at least, and these other leadership guys on Earth see that the spacers aren't perfect. They're super flawed. In some ways, Solaria is way weaker than them. If they knew how to get there. They have no clue how to get through hyperspace to them and all that. But even militarily, like, there's no threat from Solaria on...
Solaria's not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he says it here. We're Solaria inside out. They retreated into isolation from one another. We retreated into isolation from the galaxy. They're at the dead end of their inviolable estates. We're at the dead end of underground cities. They're leaders without followers, only robots who can't talk back. We're followers without leaders, who enclosing cities to keep us safe.
Yeah. I don't know what, because like I said, the first one plays as both planets have population issues. This one has intimacy issues, and I'm like, I don't know what the next one would be. Military issues.
Technically, it's supposed to be like the issues with the planet that's well balanced.
Yeah.
But what we've been hearing from the sociologist is like when you have even a perfectly balanced society, the more eventually the robots will continue to grow. Like you'll end up making, and then your population will go down.
It's so funny. It's like, it's almost like you're not supposed to curb human growth either. You're supposed to come up with solutions to spread, like they mentioned in caves. There's a huge angle there that, you know, humans keep reproducing and we keep wanting to, and it seems like a good and healthy thing. It's like, yeah, because we're supposed to inherit the stars, push that population as the seeds of the future, you know, to spread throughout the galaxy. And oh no, these robots, no matter what we do, even laws and social planning, we can't stop robot growth. And it's like, maybe you're not supposed to. Like, to the sci-fi point, like, they're gonna aid in human expansion. Obviously, Daniil is gonna be playing with if you know, robots can develop a sense of mind, and so
I'm excited to see Daniil again. I really feel like he needs a hug after this book.
You see why I love him so much, and that's why it was so kind of gross that he was used as fan fiction in book 5, where I was like, man, I'm not letting this ruin Daniil for me, because it was so weird, and I'm annoyed at Daniil's decision in book 5 of Foundation. But it's going to be so interesting to read all these robot books.
Good to know that Star Wars isn't the only one that messes up characters.
Yeah, really. But yeah, you excited for the next one? You think we call it here, right?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. We'll be starting that one next, right? I know we want to do a million other books too.
No,
but
I want to do it.
Yeah. Okay, there's only 6. There's 6 in the robot series. I know I say only 6, but
Well, it's these three that follow Daniil and Bailey, right?
It is just these three? Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
I don't know who the iRobot series follows.
I think it's just different robots, but we'll see. Because it's robot dreams, robot visions, and all that stuff. We'll get to it.
I just love how he's like, send me to the planet where my girlfriend is.
Yeah. We'll see what adventure they get into. You know what I'm saying? Okay. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.